Good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard. I'm Stephen Hilton. Cheers. We got Alden with us and Zane. And there's Zach with us as well, but you're not going to see him. He's in the background, making sure I don't be an utter failure. Jake, our fearless leader, is in Iceland. So cheers to you, Jake. Hope you have fun. We'll try to hold the fort down, keep everything from burning down, unlike Hawaii. We've got some good stuff to talk about tonight. Got a little bit of trivia. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Zach, if you don't mind bringing up that first video, watch about a minute of this.
I've got to say, you're already doing a better job hosting than Jake because you actually sent out the articles before the show. So I actually had to do show prep this week.
Nice.
I do appreciate being able to prep. I didn't this week, but it is a good gesture.
I'm cited as some, mastermind of some evil plot in many, many cases. So, no, I didn't expect any of that. In some ways, the politicization of, taking vaccines and helping protect other people, you could almost say that's a step backwards. I hope vaccine acceptance for other diseases like measles is not reduced by this. But, a lot of people jumped in and took the vaccines, but a meaningful minority in most countries were led down a path of believing that not only, were there rare side effects, but that the vaccine wasn't properly tested or was part of some evil conspiracy.
So they admit they didn't test it. They admit it didn't work. And there's AP. More polio cases now caused by vaccine than by wild virus, AP. They want you to talk about meat allergies and the shots. If you watch a report that's on Band.
Yeah, folks, that was Alex Jones replaying the interview. But Bill Gates is personally affected. He's distraught and he's hurt, upset that people would think he's part of some nefarious conspiracy. How dare they think that?
Bill Gates started off that clip by doing something that I absolutely cannot stand, which is complaining about a certain issue being politicized. He was like, oh, I can't believe that taking the vaccines became politicized. And what these people fail to realize is things become politicized whenever you start trying to force people to do them. All politics is
via policy
is using violence to coerce people into doing what you want. So when people complain about why is this politicized, what they really mean is everybody should just be forced to do what I want them to do with no debate.
I agree.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, Captain Man Boobs, Captain Dad Bod is so upset that you're not going to take health advice from him. And I just love that he called it a minority. Oh, there's such a minority of people. And it's like, I don't know, man. How many people's jobs were in jeopardy and then had to lose days of work because they got Guillain-Barré? Now, I'm not saying, that's a big portion of people that took that shot. But when you average it over, 100, 200 million people, you're going to have tens of thousands of people that have these symptoms, and they are very real.
Do we know how many, even just in our country, what percentage of people have, no vaccines for COVID? I don't know the percentage of, the unvaxxed.
Well, first of all, no one's going to answer truthfully on a poll.
It's hard to know, honestly.
Yeah, especially if it's the health department or my local police officer.
We can't even get
being detained. Get out of here.
Died, with or without it or whatever. It's been so, muddied the waters with that. So I hear you there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some cities on the left coast that are going to have that data because you had to show your passport to get into a restaurant. And, people actually went along with that. But how many of those passports were falsified? How many people have access or have the ability to enter people into that state database? Because again, it's humans entering the data on other humans. There's your flaw. You just find a nurse, single mom nurse. Hey, I'll give you $500. Go ahead and put me on that system. I'm ready. I'm ready to go out to dinner. I'm tired of sitting at home.
Yeah, I didn't even go to much and participate in much when I was living out in Washington when this happened, and I didn't have the vaccine or whatever. I had a hard enough time when they started doing the mask mandate. But I was like, if they don't want to let someone in on, at the private business level choice, whatever, even though we could talk about how this was a cultural wave, phenomenon or whatever. But when it started getting to the point where you had to prove that you were vaccinated to go anywhere, I stopped going to anything at that point. It was frustrating, but I wasn't about to go the other way with that. So
Oh yeah. Well, and I got to the point too that, I went in Home Depot or Kroger or something like that, going grocery shopping, and the little 14-year-old minimum wager is like, "Sir, do you have a mask?" I'm like, "Oh, 6 feet, stay back."
That's a good point, actually. Like,
oh,
Tom
yes, sir.
Cruise,
I'm sorry.
flipped a lid and like got in someone's face when they like had their mask like down over their chin when they were doing something, like on set with like, he was like a gaffer or something, and he got like up in his grill or whatever, and it's like, you're making more of a problem, assuming we're supposed to be going by all these rules. If these, any of the, the distancing rules, if we treat these as axioms or whatever, like if they're even correct, then he's more of an issue right now getting close, like face to face with someone, than just leaving them to do their own thing. They're outdoors, by the way, anyway.
Oh, exactly. And I had people try to fight me because I wasn't wearing a mask. People much larger than myself trying to fight me. And, bro, you better put your mask on, man. You about to hurt some people. I was like, I will sneeze on you. Stay away from me. And that kept him at bay. It's like, if you're that scared, like, you're not going to get close enough to even hit me.
Yeah, I wonder. So silly.
Yeah, it's just wild, and then you compare that to RFK. I don't know if you guys have seen him with his shirt off, but dude is jacked. Holy cow, that's
Bill
not
Gates.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's probably on the juice because he's in his 60s. But
he's on
homeboy's
the
ripped.
Metamucil.
Right. Yeah. All the fiber in his diet. That's right.
But I agree, though, with Zane, to circle back. I think that's a good point. And it becomes politicized when you make bad policy around a thing and then expect everyone to go along with it just because now it's written that it's a rule somewhere.
Right. Well, and you jeopardize people's livelihoods. You threaten their ability to provide for their families and themselves. Yeah. People lost their jobs. There were people.
How many people do you think got the shot that didn't want it, but were in a position of fear to lose their job and their security and their safety in, financially, and got the shot just
I'm just
because?
spitballing here. I would say at least a third of the people that took it.
I bet there's a very high number of people that felt pressured on some level, consciously or unconsciously, and got it, either against their better judgment or before they, might have normally.
Well, how many people got threatened too that, hey, you don't have to have the shot to work here, but if you don't take it, you're going to get tested at the beginning and end of every shift. You're going to have to wear a mask. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to, extra sterilization, humiliation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But,
ostracizing like social procedures that
exactly.
Like alienate
but if you take it, none of that, and we'll give you $500.
I was going to say the financial incentive sometimes even like they'll give you like some kind of stipend or whatever, like if you take it.
Right.
Oh, and don't forget the burger element.
Oh yeah, and a Krispy Kreme and a burger. Yeah. If the $500, right. Yeah, if you weren't fortunate enough to have a job that was offering you cash money, then go get a burger. Yeah.
No, but the other thing that annoys me so much about Bill Gates complaining that people think that he's evil is that he does all of the things that you would expect somebody to do if they were evil.
Yeah. Yep.
So, he and all of the, medical establishment were all coming out saying, if you get the shot, then we know for sure you won't get COVID.
Yeah.
And then that obviously turns out not to be true.
Right.
And instead of ever coming out and saying, yeah, sorry, we messed that one up.
Right.
He was just at some other conference somewhere and said, we know from the beginning that you could still get it, but it would just make it not as bad. And it's like, no, you literally said you won't get it, and now you're lying about what you were previously saying.
Lie, compounding lie. Yeah, and he wonders why some people don't trust him or whatever. It's insane. Even him in his practice in other areas, whether it's like buying up all the like local farms and squeezing people out, or like, squeezing people out in like the tech world or like whatever. The guy is a megalomaniac, and he is pick an industry that he's involved in. And I don't understand how, he buys his way to a better image for himself by paying hundreds of millions of dollars to media corporations and basically throwing around the word like, whatever, like philanthropy or what, I can't say it, philanthropy. And remember that? Did you see that interview where I forget who interviewed him, but they were talking about how he was like on the flight list to, what's his name's island or whatever.
Oh, Jeffrey Epstein.
Epstein, thank you.
Yeah, well, and the weird part, odd timing for this. This is something I brought up last week. Was
the divorce?
Yeah, the divorce happened. I mean, what, a week, maybe two?
I think it was right around that time.
It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
The divorce happened, and then it was like, oh, he went to Epstein Island, a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Because he tried to play it down at first. Like, yeah, I knew the guy. We
had some dinners together or whatever, and he said that he was like trying to talk, philanthropy again with him or whatever. And then he goes into a whole thing. He's like squirming in his chair, and then he goes into a whole thing on, changes the subject and talks about basically philanthropy as a subject, and not enough people talk about it. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what we were talking about. That's not the question that you were asked. And the fucking interviewer was playing all softball and was like just allowing him to just, basically, because again, he probably pays that whoever was interviewing him, he probably pays that company. Like, it's insane.
That's exactly right. So, and I just wonder, just waiting on the dirt to come out on Trudeau. Yeah, because big, powerful people like that don't have, their divorces are timed, because that family's already been through enough that she's already had reason to leave this guy for a decade.
Can you imagine being with someone like him or Bill Gates anyway? Like, that is its own sentence, man.
Yeah. At least Bezos got off easy, because his whole thing was just like, well, he was seeing other women. Well, of course he was. You shocked?
What were you going to say, Zane?
No, I was just going to say that I've heard some people speculate that what happened with Bill Gates was when he was in trouble with the Justice Department over Microsoft being a monopoly, that kind of, for the rest of his life, he has now tried to like get in good with the government and use its power for his purposes, since he knows that it can come after him. And, as a pure libertarian such as myself, I obviously don't believe that antitrust legislation should exist. And I love Microsoft products. And so I think that we should maybe be careful criticizing him for the wrong thing. It's very fashionable to criticize him for being a monopolist with Microsoft, and I don't think that that's necessarily fair. But it is the same kind of personality that would set out to create a tech monopoly like that, especially once they know how powerful the government is and it can come after them if they don't behave. It's that same type of person who will then attempt to use the power of government, which is the ultimate monopoly, to get what they want.
I agree. No, that's fair. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, exactly. Bill Gates, his company has produced some good products that I quite enjoy to this day. It's not really much of a monopoly anymore. I think Apple has majority of the market share, and then Ubuntu, bro. Everybody's running Linux these days, man. Stuff like that. But so Bill Gates, didn't his dad work for DARPA or something like that? So he's not totally removed from the government.
Yeah. And I honestly have more of an issue with him in like the agricultural industry and how he's kind of like squeezing people out in there.
Yeah. Hey,
Iceland, grumpy. Apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's in Iceland, man. You didn't get the memo? Oh, so let's see here. What do we have next? Zach, if you want to bring up the next one. If anybody's been anywhere near news for the last week or so, you've heard about this absolute disaster in Maui. From what I understand, latest things I heard today was that this entire town is done, just ashes. And then they were saying that it might have been exacerbated by some of the winds. There was a hurricane that came through recently, so the winds just really whipped it up. And of course,
they had a hurricane.
Yeah, I think that's what it said. What's driving the fight? Yeah, Hurricane Dora. Here we go, coming up in the story.
Oh,
hundreds of miles southwest of the Hawaiian Islands, but some winds come off of that stuff. So at least that's what they're blaming it on now. Thank God it's not climate change. But just wait, that narrative's coming.
It was just in the paragraph you just scrolled past. Did you see it? Go up one paragraph. Yeah. Record-setting heat this summer has contributed to unusually severe wildfires in Europe and Western Canada. Scientists say climate change driven by fossil fuel use has led to more frequent and more powerful extreme weather events.
Wow, they're even saying...
You could tell immediately that this was the angle, because this is always the angle. Like I had the displeasure of walking past the TV that had CNN on this morning, and they were talking about this, and it wasn't even, the volume wasn't even turned on, but I just knew instantly there is no way they're talking about anything other than climate change. Because any time that any weather event occurs, they're like, this is absolutely because of climate change. They don't even attempt to make the more nuanced argument that the trend of these weather events is going up over the long term, which isn't true either, but at least it would make sense. Right. They've forgotten the difference between weather and climate.
We had a whole thing on that, like, was it last week or something, the weather and climate?
Yeah, it was in the last month or so. There's a big difference.
It's just, it feels, I don't know, man. It's so specific and fishy to be like, driven by climate change, comma, fueled by fossil fuel industry specifically. It'd be like if you were talking about obesity and you were like, comma, like fueled by, like, specifically McDonald's in every city. And it's like, well, okay, but we're talking about obesity. Like, let's just stick with one. It's just, you call yourself out on, like, shoving a narrative down people's throats when you keep plugging it in everywhere.
Right.
I don't know how more people don't see it. I don't know.
Alden, an avowed racist and decorated art student. Keep throwing that out.
Yeah, great.
This is off topic, but since you brought up McDonald's and obesity, I don't know if you guys ever saw the documentary Super Size Me.
Yeah.
So we saw that in, like, my middle school gym class, and the supposed moral of the documentary is, so for those who don't know, this guy eats nothing but McDonald's for a month, and no surprise, he gets really fat and it's not good for him. And the moral of this is supposed to be McDonald's is so bad for you, never eat there. But it's like these people never considered what I, as a sixth grader at the time, realized instantly. Have you ever considered not eating at McDonald's for literally every meal for an entire month?
Yeah, it's up to
maybe
the
that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, and then oddly enough, you get these OnlyFans accounts where women are paid to only eat McDonald's on camera in their underwear in the wake of that documentary.
Really?
So, oh yeah, there's some of that going on too. So
I haven't explored enough of the internet, I guess.
Right? Yeah, you get paid for pretty much anything.
Well, some people, I'm not paid to do these things, but some people are, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not attractive enough for anyone to want to watch me eat, I'll tell you that. So
Exactly.
Well, all our viewers apparently want to watch you drink, so that's at least
okay. We'll do that, but no one's paying me either. So, good point, though.
So it's just, that's naturally in my mind, these dots connect. Bill Gates, because he's one of the guys talking about, we have to be more responsible with the planet. We have to do this and that and this and that and this and that. Right. Something I didn't mention after that last video too. There's a trend on the rise of people talking about they've acquired meat allergies since taking certain shots.
We talked about this with ticks, but we haven't talked about this with shots yet. Yeah.
But now this stuff's popping up. This phenomenon is happening in countries that don't have Lone Star ticks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the Lone Star tick that carries that meat allergy in their bite. There's places that don't have these ticks present, and these folks are just coming down all of a sudden with a meat allergy. And then
is
they
it
start
red
doing
meat
the math.
still the same as
I've
the
had
tick?
some medical procedures in the last month or so.
And
is
it just red meat, you said, or is it all meat?
Well, right now it's just red meat that I'm seeing. But with the tick bite thing, I've got friends that are allergic to pork and bacon and stuff.
Okay, interesting.
After having that tick bite. But it's just, it's really interesting too, that if that's happening, I'm not saying it is, I don't really have empirical evidence. It's all hearsay right now.
Right.
But if that's happening, it's oddly advantageous. Bill Gates has a corner on the laboratory grown meat market.
Yeah. What's the name of the one that's like the all plant-based?
Beyond Estrogen, I think.
Yeah, the Beyond Burger, the Impossible Burger. One of those he has. Yeah,
impossible amounts of estrogen in every bite.
Yeah, those.
So I have done a taste test where I've had an Impossible Burger and a regular hamburger at the same time. Whoever was taking my order at that hamburger shop probably thought that I was being a little bit weird ordering both.
That is a little weird, yeah.
but it was for the purpose of comparison. And the Impossible Burger is actually not as bad as I think a lot of people would have you believe. It doesn't taste quite like regular meat, but it's not. It's slightly drier, and the flavor isn't quite up to par, but it's not bad by any means. And if you didn't tell me, there's at least a chance that I wouldn't notice.
Right.
The lab-grown meat is a little bit different because it's like actual like animal muscle. It's
It's tissue.
The only thing that's not real about it is that it was never a real animal. It was just that one muscle that they grew.
Have you eaten?
Again, I have not had lab-grown meat, but because so many people pushing all this stuff are just the worst people on earth, it can be hard to say anything good about it.
Bugs.
In principle, I'm not opposed to eating lab-grown meat. I'd have to taste it, but I don't think that there's anything inherently nefarious about it. It's just all the people behind it, or at least a lot of them, seem to not have the best of motivations.
Right.
You might as well guzzle about 3 gallons of soy milk to get the same level of estrogen, from what I'm hearing.
See, not from the lab grown, but from the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, from the Impossible stuff like that you get at the fast food restaurants and things like that. I've heard doctors in my area that were like, "I'd rather you take a birth control pill."
Yeah, and I would say a couple of things to this. One is that I'm not similar to Zane. I'm not opposed to the whole concept of this. I just don't want anyone to pressure anyone into eating it and guilt them into not eating real meat or something, and just let people choose whatever they want to do. And I am going to not be the early adopter, and I'm going to wait until long-term studies come out to see if there's any difference.
Laser eye surgery. I'm still waiting in the wings on that one. I'm waiting on that 30-year data to make sure it's
go one at a time. One at a time.
Exactly. Because you hear the stories about the people that pre-laser stuff. When they just did it with the knives or scalpel, whatever instrumentation they had.
Yeah.
And they did the
incisions. Clean the lens off or something, or what did they even do in that?
Yeah.
I don't even.
And so now 25 years later, they're talking about, they see halos on streetlights at night. I'm like, oh, that sounds horrible.
That was my grandpa. Yeah.
Wait,
he said the word halos all the time. Yeah. Yeah. And he drove everywhere. Oh man, I thought he was going to kill me one day, honestly. We were coming down the mountain in Georgia, and his vision is next to zero, or was, right? And his brakes went out, and we were going downhill down the mountain, off-roading, and we had just the e-brake, the cable brake going down. I thought I was going to die. I accepted that I was going to die that day. And here I am. So.
Yeah, there you go.
So this is all just bonus time,
Yeah, oftentimes if you just lean into it, you'd be all right. It's the resisting that gets you in trouble. Just look at most people that get arrested.
Yeah. Hilarious.
So yeah, talking about the bug meat and stuff, there was something I saw recently. What are they calling it? Ento milk or something?
Oh yeah, entomology.
They're making ice cream from cockroach milk.
No, man. No.
And they're like, this is the delicacy of the future. And I'm like,
it's being pushed too, man. I was just talking to my girlfriend about this. I'm seeing weird things where celebrities are like, yeah, I eat bugs and eat bugs and eat bugs and whatever. It's popping up everywhere. And I was just watching an episode of Great British Bake Show with her. It's I watch an episode here and there with her, but it's her jam. She watches it all the time. And the one that I popped in and watched or whatever, one of the judges was talking about how they eat bugs and they like this, that, or the other thing with bugs or whatever. And I'm like, it's just becoming a thing that people are, I think, pushed or paid to talk about at this point.
We are not evolved to digest bugs.
I'm not.
If it becomes a significant portion of your diet, you will get sick. It has the chitin proteins.
Probably proteins.
CHITIN or something like that. There's a certain protein in the bug's exoskeleton that carries all kinds of pathogens. It's just absolutely terrible for our digestive system.
I can't imagine.
I had the mealworm brownies in 4th grade when we were reading that book. Something about fried worms or something like that.
How to eat fried worms?
How to eat fried worms?
Yeah. I've done that. I've been on a vacation and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Give me the tequila worm and the sucker. Or chocolate curved grasshopper. All right, but
a few here and there.
Bugs on my plate for dinner. I'm gonna flip out.
I would if I was in another country and if it was customary and someone served it to me, I wouldn't want to be rude. There's certain times, but I wouldn't make it a part of my regular diet.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not.
Or if I was in Madagascar or something, I'd eat I might eat one of those giant roaches. If you slather it in chocolate,
no,
I could wolf it down.
I have a thing with roaches. It's not happening.
Go ahead.
Oh,
as my grandfather would say, I wouldn't make a steady diet of it.
That's funny.
But and I'm far from the first person to make this point, but the weird thing that's happened to like the progressive left and their messaging is that like in the 20th century, at least the pitch of socialism was your life will be better. Obviously, it became much worse, but at least what the socialists were saying was we're going to make your life better. Now the pitch of the progressives is we are going to make your life worse. We are going to make you eat bugs.
And you're
and you're going to enjoy it.
With it.
You'll own nothing and be happy. You're going to eat bugs and that's it, Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like, when they rolled out the Common Core practices for math, certain grade levels around Metro Atlanta, there was PTO meetings where they were actually pushing the narrative of, well, with enough training and familiarization, you'll learn to like this stuff.
Yeah, right.
What? Takes my daughter 10 minutes with sidewalk chalk to figure out if she's got enough money for bubbles when we go to Toys R Us. Like, what?
Yeah. We might, if you're old enough, it might not be a matter of time and whatever, but if you're young enough, if you get to the younger generations, in school or whatever, then it might, sink in that level.
I have done some looking into what the quote new math is and how Common Core attempts to teach it. And essentially they're teaching elementary math in a way that is only advantageous if most of the people that are taking the elementary math eventually go on to do very advanced math.
Yes.
So if you go because what they do is they go extremely deep into the concepts behind every single thing that they do and have people do addition and subtraction and division and all the elementary items in ways that is not the easiest way of going about it if that's where you're going to stop. But once you get to calculus or advanced linear algebra, if you had been taught it at that very conceptual level to begin with, it actually helps. The problem is that not 90% of people are going to take multivariable calculus. Only 5% of them are. And
exactly. So now you're going to have a whole generation that can't run the cash register at McDonald's.
Yeah. So you've got to teach it the practical way for the vast majority of people that only need the math to do practical things.
And then offer it to those that are interested in math specifically, maybe as an alternative.
And that's why, the good schools around here, I put that in air quotes because it's, the government schools, the best government school is still at the end of the day a government school. It's a glorified daycare most of the time. So at least the good ones are integrating in elementary school. They're introducing them to the Common Core stuff, and then once they get to the middle school level, they let them use whichever one they're comfortable with. And then by the time they get to high school, after they've been through that whole system, since elementary school level, when they get to high school, they've been introduced to both. They've been allowed to use both, but then they're told to pick one.
Whatever one they
which one are you
prefer.
most comfortable with, and that's the one we're going to grade you on.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
at least has some element of choice involved, and it's kind of cool. Exactly.
Then we got that.
Yeah.
I hear it's Ben Stiller.
You can milk anything, Greg. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, it's you can milk anything, and then he's like, I have nipples, Greg. Yeah. Can you milk me? I'm sorry. I gotta stop now.
Oh man.
Who's milking the cockroaches?
Daddy.
Yep.
Good night.
All right. So Zach, if you want to bring up the next story, this is just me connect. I'm not saying the dots connect. I'm just throwing the dots out there. This is just kind of how thoughts occur to me in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about the wildfires. Is it is it because of the hurricane? Is it most of it is human negligence? Most wildfires, the vast majority.
There was one started out west when I was out there that was from a gender reveal party at a park or whatever, where they had pyrotechnics and.
You stole my joke. I was going to say that 60% of all wildfires are started by gender reveal parties.
Sorry. Yeah. It was near me when it happened, one of them anyway.
Man, that's one lit party. But so they throw that out there that they want to build this narrative. Bill Gates and the likes are trying to build this narrative that it's climate change. It's anthropogenic. We're causing this stuff somehow. And in some sense we are, with the wildfires, because 85 to 90%, the vast majority are caused by some form of human negligence or otherwise malintent.
Yeah. A lot of cigarette butts, not lightning or whatever. Yeah.
You didn't put your campfire out,
right.
A cigarette butt, or just straight up arson.
Yeah.
All of these things. So something just occurred to me, when I was driving home today, and I was just thinking about, hey, that weather balloon, what part of Hawaii did that fly over? Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm reading through this story again, the mysterious green lasers seen over Mauna Kea, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm sure me trying to pronounce these Hawaiian towns is some kind of hate crime in some states. But, you can draw a line from that village in Maui over Mauna Kea, and if you project that line out, you can fly over all the Hawaiian Islands pretty much, like all the mainlands, and you have a tactical vantage point over all of them. And wildfires in mountainous terrain tend to grow. Fire goes uphill way faster than downhill, especially with winds on it. So I don't know. Are the two related? Not sure. But, is this even going to be investigated? Doubt it.
No, probably not.
Because what is it? Biden's been on vacation now. I think a cumulative total of over a year.
Really?
In his first term. Yeah, he's had like over 370 days of total vacation.
What was George?
Everybody was so mad that Bill Clinton played so much golf, or had so many cigars, and then George Bush, he played so much golf, and then Donald Trump, he played so much golf, and now like Biden, like he's just drooling on himself, eating ice cream, playing video games.
Each time they say it's been like the most like vacation time like since or whatever. I think they said that about in the modern presidency, like Bill Clinton, George W. Bush. I don't know, maybe Trump too. I wasn't even paying attention to that one, but
yeah. But look,
but now Biden
showing this video of the lasers too. Like what is that?
They're vertical. That's weird. I haven't seen these before.
Are they doing some LiDAR mapping? Some topographic mapping of the island for what?
I think you guys talked about that in a week when I was moving.
Yeah,
because I have not seen this. Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, this is. I know a lot of people don't have the memory for this, but this is going back 6 months. It's just pretty weird that China's kind of mapping the area that's now on fire.
That looks weird. I got to look into this.
Could be a total coincidence. Probably is.
Yeah, we love coincidences here.
The other thing with a lot of wildfires can be blamed on very poor public forest management policies. Well, where the people in charge of the forest, the government most of the time, will go in and stamp out any tiny little fire that they see so that none of the underbrush ever burns up in small quantities. So you've just got tons of underbrush everywhere. And then when somebody throws their cigarette out the window and the authorities can't get to it in time, they've got nothing but kindling on the forest floor, and that just blows up immediately. Whereas if the forest isn't being managed at all, then these like smaller fires will just pop up from time to time, and it'll take care of itself.
Yeah, so, that's exactly what happened in California. Because the enviro Nazis out there. Terrible. What's that?
I said just another example of central planning being terrible.
Oh, absolutely. The enviro Nazis out in California, or I call them the watermelons because they're green on the outside, red in the middle. Because they say it's for environmental purposes, but it's really just for total control of the government.
Yeah.
And the founder of Greenpeace, he even left in the late 80s saying that he'd been infiltrated by communists. So
really?
Yeah, that's not really much of a conspiracy at this point. It's kind of.
No, I'm not doubting it. I've just not heard it before. That's amusing.
Yeah, but California in particular, they're one that they crack down on, controlled burns, controlled clearing, cutting fire breaks, things like that.
We just mentioned this last time when we were talking about because I didn't realize that was something that had been curtailed, and I'm like, isn't this a good idea to kind of do that, because we have what Zane was saying, such a just a don't let it burn mentality, but then you accumulate all this underbrush and then it becomes more of a hazard when it does burn. So I thought controlled burns were
down the left coast where you have the Mediterranean climate zone. So their climate zone, again, climate, not weather. But it's based on 7-year cycles of wet and dry, wet and dry, wet and dry. That's how you have the El Nino and the La Nina and all these kind of influencing factors.
And a lot of times you have like high desert, which is like dry most of the year out there, like really dry.
In a particularly dry year, and it gets up into the high desert, and you haven't clear cut or controlled burned. Yeah, I mean, basically all you got to do is clap 2 stones together, and you got 1,000 acres on fire.
Yeah.
So it's pretty weird. And I want to look at what was the pattern of the Chinese weather balloon, or excuse me, China weather balloon. It's not a person. But the China weather balloon going over Canada, the entire province that just erupted in flames within 3 hours, because that stuff that was going on up in Canada, like that didn't behave like a standard wildfire.
A lot
this
don't.
was,
and there was a tactic, I think it was World War II, that there was like a bunch of balloons actually that were that came over the Pacific, I think, to here.
That's what we did to Japan.
Market Garden.
Maybe that is where they were trying to light fires with them or whatever. I don't know the name of it.
Our firebombing in Japan did more damage than the nukes.
In terms
because
of
they had paper doors on their huts and stuff.
And
right. We just put a napalm balloon in the windstream, and then, and just let it hit the bottom of the hill, and woof, whole town's gone.
I mean, that's just in general. Just anytime I hear anything with like war tactics, it just makes me sad in general. But effective, but sad.
Right.
But I think that it was like 0 fires were actually really started that mattered from it. But I think they recovered it was like almost 50 different balloons or something that one time. And it's not talked about much, but there was like 50 balloons that came over our country at some point in World War II or something.
Oh yeah. I remember reading about that. It wasn't what I said earlier, but luckily the only casualty was, I think, like one kid in Oregon. Like their family was on a picnic or something, and
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Like
a kid yacht blew up.
Can you imagine?
I mean, the Japanese were actually doing that, and luckily it didn't result in any damage beyond that.
Yeah, nothing really like took or whatever from it, but they tried, and they had all these ones that were set to fall down and start fires or whatever.
Golly. Can you imagine being on a family picnic? Dad, look,
that's
what
I was.
Yeah.
That was like just the cosmic joke of it, of like you could go anywhere for a picnic and you pick that spot. I don't know. That's just struck me as
play the same music as the ice cream truck too, just for added effect.
Oh God!
Can you imagine dropping a bomb? It's just playing Green Sleeves.
Jeez. Oh man. All right. Well, hey, how about we get us some trivia before we segue into the next stuff?
All right. It's is it just 1-on-1 here, or is Zach doing it?
I think it is, because I had a hand
I know too many of them.
Yeah, I had a hand in some of the questions. So
yeah, I'll get it set up, but keep talking amongst yourself because it'll take me a second.
Okay.
All right.
So.
Yeah. So definitely weather balloons. That's
I'm afraid
one
to go on a picnic.
Yeah, well, because that's something that always manages to evade the radar, is anything that's low and slow.
I was going to say, is it a speed thing or an altitude thing, or both?
That was what helicopter was it that was really prevalent in Vietnam era?
The Huey. Hold on, after the. Oh wait, I don't have trivia up. 1 second.
That's the next story.
But anyway, I always make my balloons the same way I cook my brisket, low and slow.
Yeah, there we go. It's the Chinook, nice. The Chinook helicopter. They call it the air cow. That's why it was really effective, because it could fly under the radar, and it was just slow enough to fly under the radar. Which that was, we had a bunch of Navy SEALs. SEAL Team 6 after the Bin Laden raid. There was a what was it called? Extortion 1 was the name of it. I forget what the operation name was, but they actually named the helicopter Extortion 1, and they had the entire SEAL team on one helicopter, which is a violation of their protocol, and they all got taken out by a freaking rocket going for Afghanistan.
I guess that's why you're not supposed to have them all in one, I guess, right? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's why they split up and go in multiples. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really weird. It was almost like they were kind of offered up as a sacrifice.
It's odd when you break protocol with a elite team like that knows better and has all the goodies and toys at their disposal anyway. Like,
yeah, and you put them in an air cow.
The slowest.
Yeah,
load it up. I don't, that is a little fishy. Yeah,
but hey, at least we got an Obama action figure out of it.
Is this a real thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, seriously.
Oh yeah, there was an Obama GI Joe that was made after SEAL Team 6 did their
my
Bin
God.
Laden raid.
Of course there was.
Right.
I want to see a Biden one. That would actually be hilarious.
No, I want to see.
It would be him falling off of his bike.
I want to see the Biden. What do
great.
they call them? Caganes. It's Catalonia, Spain. They have a long tradition of making ceramic dolls of various political world leaders taking a crap.
There you go.
They have, like, Queen Elizabeth is on the toilet reading a paper, and it's a ceramic doll. And they make one of every U.S. president. It's pretty interesting.
Did Trump's have a gold toilet?
I need to look it up, see what it
That'd
was.
be fun.
Because when Trump got in, they didn't really have a government.
Oh,
Anyways, we can get back to that later. So we got got trivia. So round 1, we got history. Round 2, wildfires and natural disasters. Round 3, myths.
Yeah,
So,
it's all a little screwed up too. So bear with us.
it's all screwed up. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I just dumped everything Steven sent me into history, and then like 2 minutes before the show realized it wasn't all about history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
We'll figure it out.
All right. So you know the rules. Wave your hand over the camera. Round 1, 1 point each. We're gonna do 5 questions, not 10. Round 2, 5 questions, 2 points each. 2 points each. Round 3, 3 questions, worth 3 points each. And then the whole thing about losing points, we never enforce that. So, all right.
I try not to shout out. Is that the only thing to lose points is shouting out, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you blurt
I
out
try
a term.
not to do that. Yeah. Even when I'm joking, I still hold my hand up. Actually.
Yeah. Here we go. Which animal is most often blamed for the 1871 fire that engulfed Chicago? Zane.
A cow.
That's right.
Wow. Why?
Yeah, it was like a cow that kicked over like a lantern. And
Is
then
it? Oh,
caught
man.
a hay in a barn on fire, and then it bada bing, bada boom. The city is on fire. Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
Also fishy.
Which, oddly enough, that was the birth of modern day zoning codes.
See, it's fishy, man.
The wake of the Chicago fire.
These cows are dangerous. We got to have zoning now. Like, I'm telling you, it's fishy.
Well, I mean, common sense stuff like, leave 10 feet between buildings, stuff like that. Like, that was not in practice. That was,
Right.
Back then in Chicago, buildings were touching each other.
They still are.
Yeah. All right, what we got next? Approximately how many active volcanoes exist on the planet? Zane.
10.
Alden.
40.
I'm going to give you guys a hint and just say you got to pump them numbers up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what, like, does dormant, like non-extinct,
No, active.
qualify as active?
Not the dormant ones, active.
Well, then,
Like can and do erupt at any time. Zane.
500.
Closer. Still, okay. What you got, Alden?
I'm gonna go 900. But I feel like if we normally do this, and I always lose to Zane, I feel like if it was a higher number, my answer was higher. My original answer. I'm calling on the judges here. I don't know how we're going to do this one, but
If it's higher than 40, you can get the point.
So I'll give you guys another hint. You're both still low.
well then, okay, so I keep trying to edge higher, so
Yeah. I'll give you one more guess, and we're just going to give it up. Zane.
10 million.
Way over.
yeah. I was going to go 1800.
1900.
Okay.
Well,
Alden.
40 is closer to 1900 than 10. So Alden gets the point.
And that's an approximate number. That's not really an exact science, but
I know there's
the vast majority of those are in the Pacific Rim, the Ring of Fire.
I know there's active, and then there's considered like dormant, which are like maybe technically still active, and then there's extinct. So I didn't know like if it was like a group of like the first two that could go still, but
Right. Well, and that's any kind of investment talk, people are like, "Oh, you got to buy land. They're not making more of that stuff." That's when I raise my hand. I'm like, there's a volcano in Hawaii that adds an acre a year.
They're not making more.
Right.
Yeah. Antarctica and the moon,
Yep. All right, what we got next? What do you call a wildfire large enough to produce its own weather? Zane.
Very large.
Close, but no. Alden.
Autoclimatic.
It's a good guess, but no. Zane.
This is probably completely wrong, but for some reason I'm thinking of the word endogenous.
Nope, that's not it either.
No, it's androgynous.
No, endogenous is a real word.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But it's also not it. So, did we talk about this with like the example that? No, you were talking about generators kicking on and causing a lightning storm, but I don't know if this term came up then.
No, this term did not come out then.
I have no idea, man.
All right.
I tried to put root words together that might equate to it, but
let's go ahead and give it to him, Zach. Conflagration or conflagration.
Oh, I never knew that word had an official meaning. I just always thought that it meant a very large and disastrous.
Yeah, that's if you ever hear the weather service or anybody like that talking about a conflagration, it's because it started to create its own weather.
So that's one of the markers of something that is a conflagration, is that it makes its own weather. That's crazy. Yeah,
like a rainstorm will just pop up over it, which makes the devastation even worse, because then if you don't have any foliage to catch the rainwater, now you have ash flows, floods, this whole deluge of crap that just
and it makes it hard
roads.
For anyone to get in to do anything about the fire too, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't really help it from the ground at that point. All right, what we got next? In 2004, an earthquake powerful enough to make the entire earth wobble struck which country? Zane.
Indonesia.
Yeah, that's right. It made the days shorter for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, supposedly, right, with like the crust like actually like folding in on itself, or like shrinking the size of the planet, basically, so it spun faster. Like,
yeah,
that was the theory.
What's the name of the hurricane dubbed the costliest hurricane on record? Alden.
Katrina.
Yep. There we go.
Bang. Wait, where are we at point-wise right now? Or we don't have to do it right now.
Just...
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, okay. Hold on. Alden's got... Zane, you only have one?
Oh, wait.
No, I have tied.
Oh, wait, it's
tied
2-2. Right.
Yeah, it's 2-2.
Okay.
Because you got the volcano one as well.
Yeah. All right, what we got next? On this day in 2019, which high-profile figure did not kill themselves?
Oh.
Alden.
Epstein?
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering with the way that was worded.
Fortunately, it says 0 points. So
0
we talked
points.
about that in chat. Yeah.
Why 0 points?
You
we
can't give
it?
points for a question
put
that's
in there.
this easy. Everybody knows Epstein didn't kill himself.
Well, right, okay, but I got it right, and so I want a point.
Yeah,
I didn't know we talked about it. I didn't read it, but that's all right.
I'll take it a step farther and say Epstein's not dead.
I would entertain that. I mean, honestly, at this point, nothing surprises me anymore. So
I don't, the whole earlobe analysis thing doesn't really sell it to me. Because if you got to buy into that, then Biden's had a puppet up on stage.
I was gonna
for the
say
last
that
2
there's
years.
5 Bidens, like, yeah.
And I'm like, well, how does your puppet have dementia just as bad as you? Like, that's not.
It's good.
Because some of that stuff's not acting.
Some of it's probably not, honestly.
All right, so we got a tie going into round 2, fellas. This is a hot
Wait, so
one.
now it's about wildfires, even though we had a wildfire question.
That was the disclaimer at the start of this that just kind of disjointed. We did kind of slap this one together.
There's a good chance that these aren't about wildfires.
So these are about history. Yeah.
This is the production quality you've come to expect from
But then each one that I get right, it won't be worth any points. So.
This is a conflagration of trivia here. So, all right, what we got? What is the name of the tectonic boundary fault line that caused the 1906 San Francisco earthquake? Zane.
The San Andreas fault.
That's right.
The type was so small on that one, and my screen, I have the little iPad, and so my screen's so tiny that I was at a text-size disadvantage. But yes, that is what it is.
That's also one of The Rock's worst movies ever. Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, burying and preserving 2 cities under ash. One of these cities is Pompeii. What's the name of the other?
I put my hand up before because I was like reading just enough, and I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
The second
Alden,
one.
what you got?
I was gonna say Pompeii. I have no idea what the second one is.
I think it's some obnoxiously Latin name like Quadropolis or something.
It has to have an opolis in there. Yeah.
I'm never gonna be able to come up with it though.
I'm gonna say Pisces. I'm just gonna make up a name. What did Gnome say about Epstein?
Even Epstein knows he didn't kill himself.
Yeah, he'll tell you today. Yeah.
All right, Zach, what we got on this one?
Oh, so okay.
Herculaneum.
So more like a Greek vibe.
Yeah, or a Herculaneum.
I don't know.
Sounds like
But
a forbidden body part.
know that. Yeah. At first, I got excited because I was like, "Ooh, Vesuvius! Like, I know that one."
Yeah. In 1980, which U.S. volcano erupted, becoming the most significant volcanic eruption in the contiguous U.S.? Zane.
Mount St. Helens.
Yeah.
Oh,
Damn
yeah.
it. I didn't know we had transitioned. I was still talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dang it. The San
You
Andreas.
gotta
Mount
keep
St.
your
Helens.
head in the game.
I'm telling you, man, I'm not good at it. Yeah.
All right, here we go. The next question. What is the term used to describe a tropical storm in the western Pacific Ocean? I think Alden moved first on that one.
Yeah. Typhoon. Bang.
There we go. All right.
I was going to ask that earlier, actually. If something hits Hawaii, is it not a typhoon? Because we said hurricane.
Right.
And I was actually, that's funny, I was going to bring that up earlier, and then I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't, because I would have spoiled a trivia question, I guess.
Well, the news article said Hurricane Dora, and the news is always right.
Oh, there we go.
So
yeah. Answered.
All right. What we got next? What scale is commonly used to measure the magnitude of earthquakes? Zane.
The Richter scale.
Yeah. Dang it.
Which PSA about the Richter scale, which I think most people don't know, it's logarithmic, which means that earthquake that's a 7 on the Richter scale
is 10
times worse than a 1 that's a 6 on the scale.
Yeah.
It's not just a little bit worse.
No, it's
there you go. So if it's a 9.2,
an order of magnitude more per unit. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the stories I read on that when I was coming up with that question earlier was it was 1,500 times more powerful than the bomb on Hiroshima.
For what number?
For the earthquake in Indonesia.
Oh,
in
okay.
2004.
Wow.
All right, what we got next? Okay, round 3. So? How about a score update, Zach? Are you keeping score here?
Yeah. So Zane's at 6, Alden 4, and it looks like Elizabeth got one right, but there's too much of a lag, so not in time. But she got.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
We should give that to her because neither of us knew that. So
look, so second place is up for grabs, and the audience is coming hard here. All right, so round 3, we got myths. In Greek mythology, what is the name of the divine food believed to grant immortality to the gods?
I think I was on the wrong side.
Oh no, I'm completely drawing a blank.
I know it.
5 seconds.
5. Ambrosia.
Dang it.
Yeah, there we go.
How many points are these again?
These are 3 apiece.
3? Okay, cool.
Alden just took the lead.
Hey, history in the making right here.
All right.
I need to get this up on my desktop so I can read these questions faster.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should read them aloud and not post them on the screen, and that would help me.
Yeah, maybe so. I think Zane's just throwing his hand up because he knows it.
He's like, I'll figure it out by the time it's done read. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do we have next? In American folklore, what's the name of the giant lumberjack often accompanied by a big blue ox named Babe? I think Alden moved first on that one.
Is it Paul Bunyan? Yeah.
All right.
Bang, bang.
All right, next question.
This is the last question.
Oh, okay. In Native American folklore, what mythical bird is often associated with storms and considered a powerful and supernatural creature? I think Zane beat you on this one, Alden.
I disagree. I'm gonna watch the tape later.
Phoenix.
No.
Alden, what you got?
Thunderbird. Well, it depends on the culture though, but
Thunderbird.
Bang.
There we go. That's also there's a Holiday Inn Thunderbird in Miami if you want a discounted rate near South Beach. It's a cool place to stay.
The Thunderbird story is actually really crazy and interesting, and I am frustrated that all of like Native American stories get swept under the mythos rug and like no one takes them seriously. But when you really look into a lot of their various different tribe stories, I think there's at least some truth to a lot of them, and I think it's frustrating that they're all just branded as myth.
Oh yeah,
but that's a talk for another day. But
oh yeah, well, and all the stuff around Devil's Tower,
all kinds of stuff. The Grand Canyon. Yeah,
I forget. Oh gosh, what tribe was it that was at the base of that Devil's Tower? Because that was the constellation, the Pleiades.
Is that Wyoming, Devil's Tower?
Yeah. And there's a constellation.
That might be
Pleiades.
the Sioux.
You know, a lot of mythos around to call it the Seven Sisters. You know, the ancient Celts, they referred to it as the Seven Sisters, which even they didn't have the technology back then to see that there were 7 stars there.
Not supposed to have known, like,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
this is like the Dogon too. I like know crazy shit about the stars that we didn't know until this, you know, modern era, like with telescopes and stuff. And go ahead though. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at too. Was that, you know, the Indians around the Devil's Tower? That was one of the things they were talking about. Was one star that was in the Pleiades. They called it Tula, and they had this myth, you know, within their tribe that, you know, once you attain a certain level of enlightenment, you just kind of make the jump and go home to that star. And you know, it's a neat story, but it's also curious. You know, how did they see that star?
Right, like even if you don't
have telescopes.
Literally like the story or whatever, it's interesting how much is known about the star systems and separating like 2 stars that are so close together that like the naked eye can't discern that it's not one light source, you know. Night Grumpy.
Night Grumpy.
We didn't I need a beer to celebrate my first win in trivia here.
Oh yeah. Cheers to Alden. First win.
Well played, Zane.
Yeah. There we go.
I need to be on the board. I need to be not a 0 anymore, so I'm happy.
There you go. Coming out of that slump. Tied for third. It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, Zach, if you want to put up the, speaking of stars, you know, bring up the story about the sun activity.
Okay. It'll take me another minute.
Okay.
Usually Jake's doing half of this, so I'm half as slow today or half as fast.
Yeah, if you're half as slow, does that mean that you're actually faster?
I think so.
Probably. But yeah, so getting into, you know, stars and going back to the fire in Hawaii, and, you know, was it man-made? Was it a military attack? Was it human negligence? Was it climate change? Was it natural? We don't know. But one thing that is not going to be false flagged on a weather front is solar activity. And, you know, we see a story every month these days of, oh my gosh, you know, the human race almost met their demise because an asteroid came 1 million miles from Earth. You know, and you hear this crap all the time. But what's really freaky is these X-class solar flares. Or
you just said X-class.
X-class. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so they call them, you know, CMEs or coronal mass ejections.
Yeah.
You know, back in the 1980s, there was one that, you know, Canada sustained a direct hit, and it melted power poles off their bases. Like traffic signals fell off of their base. You know, back in the late 1800s, you had what's called the Carrington event. Yeah. The entire telegraph system of a whole region was knocked out by a solar flare.
Yeah, wires were like on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, when Newt Gingrich was running for president, this was part of his presidential platform. He wrote the foreword for somebody who wrote a book, you know, talking about how, you know, EMPs are going to take out our power grid. And part of his whole thing, his presidential campaign was, he was asking for like $3 billion, I think, to insulate the national power grid. And it would make us less susceptible to foreign EMP attack as well as X-class solar flares. And, even though the UN passed a resolution in 2006 saying that the sun has no impact on our weather.
The sun has all of the impact on our weather. What are they talking about? That's where any of it comes from.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so maddening.
I love how the UN just thinks that it can just pass a resolution on something and that therefore makes it be true.
Yes.
Like we declare the sun has no impact on our weather.
They could.
I don't think the sun realized that the UN did that.
And Elizabeth is on something here too. There's some technology we can certainly do without.
Honestly,
the surveillance being among them.
Reset.
Yeah, if you want to knock out all the plate readers in town, please go ahead.
Yeah. The only way to really insulate from it, though, is to build a certain depth underground. I mean, it truly is and our military has already, and they know this.
Well, but for the above ground installations as well, there's ways to do that. There's insulation that can withstand certain things. So
lead lines or something.
Military grade EMPs, within a certain radius, it doesn't knock out the entire grid. So that's just one of the things to kind of. What's that?
It'll depend on like your proximity and like if you're in the direct line of it, or like if you're on the fringe, and like you can insulate against it if you're like not in a direct line from something.
Right. If it's just like a glancing blow, so if you're in the direct line of an X-class solar flare, like I said, back in the 80s, this thing was melting traffic poles off their bases.
Yeah.
There's not much insulation against that.
The geomagnetic field around the Earth too has been declining over the years, and it's my belief that this is tapering and it's going through a cycle of either weakening or a full pole flip at one point. And we're told I've been told all through school we're overdue for a pole flip or whatever.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be a
by
polar shift.
200,000 years or something or whatever, some crazy number.
Yeah, I've heard that happens every 200,000 or 300,000 years.
Yeah,
but there's a quote that I really like, which says, "Where there is no solution, there is no problem." There's nothing that I can do about this, so I'm not going to worry about it.
That's great.
Occam's razor at its finest, my friend. That is exactly right.
But
I'm not totally sold that the poles are going to shift, through the Earth, through the middle of the Earth. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I do know that I think it's every 13,000 years we have a new North Star.
You're talking about the wobble.
Well, just where the pole is aimed at. So you have magnetic north, and then you have astronomic north,
right?
Which is aimed at the North Star, which right now is Polaris. But next it's going to be Vega, and then it's going to be Thuban.
I think the what is it? What's the wobble? What's the official term for the wobble? It begins with a P. Of the Earth.
Baby wobble.
But the wobble of the Earth, I think it's every 26,000 years is a full wobble cycle or whatever.
Right.
And so 13 would be half of that. So you'd be between maybe it is between the two star points is 13.
Well, there's 3 North Stars.
A precession cycle. That's
which oddly enough, the Great Pyramids of Giza line up with all 3.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't
know.
So
it's Polaris, Vega, and Thuban. And Thuban, I think, is in Orion's belt.
And then the sides align with true north.
Right.
As the planet's north, not necessarily magnetic north or whatever, but true north.
Right. And then, of course, we're going to lose everybody that didn't have Common Core math. But then you get into state plane coordinates and how they align north.
Surveyor talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So
and now it is time for Geology Corner with Steve.
That's exactly right.
But if you combine these two effects, if you combine the weakening magnetic shielding, and if you combine a more active sun and stronger solar flares, that's a bad combination, because then you get more susceptible to the flares, and you're more likely to have a direct hit at the same time. And exactly. I think it is going to be what eventually is just going to happen. Statistically, it's just going to happen. But
because the sun runs in cycles as well.
Yeah, 12,000 years.
I'm talking about the 11-year solar cycle in terms of
much
sunspot
smaller
activity.
Okay, yeah, because there's micro.
Right now, we're in that bottom of the bell curve called the Maunder minimum, where there's fewer sunspots, but the sunspots that are there are more likely to have coronal mass ejections.
Okay.
So it's, the sun is technically less active, but when it does flare up, you get these beams that, cause the aurora. It's real pretty to look at for certain parts of the hemisphere, but it also knocks out communications, GPS equipment. Of course, being in construction and stuff, that's always a joke. The equipment.
It's a bombardment.
Freaking solar flare.
Yeah, bombardment of radiation, essentially, of various wave types or whatever. But
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and facial recognition. Yeah, so please,
knock that
stuff
out. That's
out.
fine.
Yeah, we can solar flare that all day.
So is that 11-year cycle because of the Earth's relative position to the sun, or something to do with the sun itself?
It's the sun itself. It just has to do with the way it's burning itself, folding in on itself, whatever.
It's really interesting to me that something as massive as the sun could have a cycle that's as short as only 11 years. Because if you think of the lifetime of the sun, it's like 10 billion years. And yet it goes through a cycle every 11 years. That's interesting.
Think about like a pot like boiling in slow motion, and like the time that it takes for like a bubble to reach like the surface kind of a thing. Like, and if you have like rapid boil, the sun is kind of doing its own kind of rapid boil kind of things where things come to the surface.
Yeah. Well, and things I've noticed in my life, and maybe this is just part of like, oh, it's raining, I can feel it in my bones. Maybe it's just part of getting old, but every time cicadas are out, we have solar flare problems.
The cicadas know.
Yeah, I think they kind of go hand in hand. So hey, it's a solar flare today, kids. Go get your cicada milk. Let's make some ice cream.
Good full circle joke though. That's disgusting, but good.
Right. So Zach, if you want to bring up the next article here. So
we're running low on articles. So would you rather just bring up this grumpy gnome comment, and I bet you guys will have a lot to say on it?
Sure. The next part we can rant on it for a little while, but so Supreme Court has just blocked a $6 billion Purdue Pharma bankruptcy settlement that would protect the Sackler family from the opioid-related civil claims.
Purdue, is that chicken or
Purdue
is that
Pharma? They made
that?
OxyContin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the Sackler
chicken.
family were the progenitors of Purdue Pharma.
Okay.
And there was a $6 billion
You'll
settlement that was
like Dope Sick, Alden on Netflix, I think. Dope Sick.
Dope Sick? I'll write that down.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they knew what was going on, because from what I understand, there's a town in, is it New Hampshire or Connecticut? Where's the big factory? I don't know. Northern New England, up in that area, whatever state it was. The town that's downwind of the factory is addicted to the stuff.
Wow.
Like where they make it. I live close enough to a Purina dog food factory that, you drive past it on the interstate certain times of day. You're like, man, somebody's cooking something.
You get hungry for Taco Bell,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it smells like meat and gravy. It smells great.
Every once in a while, there's a dog treat that I'll open and I'll be like, is that beef jerky? Do I need to try one of those? Like,
is this really actual bacon?
Yeah.
Some of them are
putrid, but
yeah. So the town.
Imagine that, but it's laced with opioids.
Right. Dog treats with opioids. Yeah.
So it's in that whole town where this factory is, it's floating in the air. It's got to be in the water supply. I mean, my God, just imagine, the faulty pills come off the pill press. What do they do with it? Flush it down the toilet.
Probably.
And then then it goes to the sewer system, and most municipal cities turn doo-doo back into drinking water.
I heard that
and a lot of medications don't come out of that.
Medications and plastics are really hard to get, and I think what is it we consume if you drink like really well filtered city water, on average it's like a credit card's worth of plastic a week or a month or something like that.
It's got to be a year. I don't think it's that much.
I don't know,
but it's like over over a decade. It's you've got a couple of milk jugs inside of you.
Yep.
It's not good. And
maybe that's why we all relate to the Barbie movie. Microplastics.
Nice.
That'll be interesting though, if because they were trying to declare bankruptcy, because that's what these big corporations do. I don't want to sound like one of these socialists, like, oh, the evils of capitalism.
Right.
You know, this is late stage capitalism at its
Well, Zane
finest.
said this. Well, what's that line that it's like the privatized gains but socialized losses or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, I actually think that corporate bankruptcy is something that should not be allowed.
I wondered if you thought that.
If you own the business, you should not be able to stop paying people that you've wronged until you are literally destitute.
There you go.
What comes along with owning a business. And the fact that you are allowed to declare bankruptcy is a government intervention. Government came up with the idea of being able to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Which
I thought
you know that has benefits too, because you know otherwise you'll have debtors' prisons like the state of Georgia started out to some degree. You know, the whole country of Australia.
I was going to say Australia, wasn't it? Yeah, as a colony.
Yeah, you know, so that's how a lot of the colonization happened, was they just had to have somewhere to ship their prisoners.
All right, well, you don't have to take it that far, but the Sacklers are a long way away from going to debtors' prison.
Exactly. So, you know, so what do you do here? Like, you know, what's one possible solution? Because that's, you know, libertarians are often criticized for being able to criticize anybody, analyze the wrong in anything, and not offer a real solution. So, how about if you declare bankruptcy in the wake of a criminal indictment or a criminal judgment being leaned against you? The people you owe the money to are secured creditors. So yeah, you can go bankruptcy, but you're going to liquidate enough assets to pay these folks.
It has to come out of what you own or have. Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead, do your corporate restructuring, rebrand yourself,
right,
repolish your image, but you're going to sell a few factories to pay these folks. Something.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You know, and that was,
if you have something left at the end of it, then you still have a business, and if not, then you don't have a business. Like,
that was one of the ways that, you know, Obama totally wrecked centuries-old bankruptcy laws. You know, in 2008, I think it was, with you know, the GM restructuring, because he actually stepped in and illegitimately used his presidential authority to have unsecured creditors paid before secured creditors.
Mm.
You know, so like the labor unions that were partial owners, because they were stock owners in GM, they got paid last.
Okay.
They were just told screw off. And then you had unsecured creditors like banks and stuff. You know, banks got their money from GM before the actual workers who were you know, owner operators essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just got the table scraps of what was left. They got totally hanging out in the dust. That's why Ford made it. You know, Ford didn't force unionize. You know, don't want to.
I think we talked about that with Ford. And then we made a joke about this with like trends and like whenever Ford, I forget
they took out a big loan, something's bad's
the loan, yeah. Then be careful.
And they've been taking out some big loans.
Yeah, they're like storing up for winter, you know.
I always get my financial advice from Instagram.
Yeah, why not? That's the best.
I think
here we go. We'll put this back up. So yeah, the permanent chemicals that never leave your body or DNA for generations. Yeah. And you know, you have pharmaceutical companies to thank for that stuff. You have municipal water authorities to thank for that stuff. You know, the military industrial complex throughout.
What about the fluoride that we put in the water intentionally?
And where is that sourced? That's a byproduct of the phosphate fertilizer industry.
Fertilizer and aluminum.
And there was a whole bunch of it left over after Project Manhattan. You know, since we got Oppenheimer in the movie theaters, they had barrels and barrels and barrels of this stuff.
I haven't seen that yet.
So here's a fun fact about fluoride. And you know, I'm not going to go off on the whole tangent, dedicate this whole show to fluoride, but the EPA will not allow you to
do one show on it. Yeah. They don't know how to what?
They don't allow you to bury it. You know, so a lot of hazardous chemicals.
No, it's a toxic waste.
Exactly. Like it does not go away. Like it will leach into, it will permanently.
It doesn't go away in your body either. That's the problem. Like,
right.
It bioaccumulates in your pituitary and your pineal and whatever. Like, go ahead, Zane. What'd you say?
Can someone tell me what the deal with fluoride is? Because whenever people talk about it, I kind of assume it's a joke, but I have a feeling that's maybe at least not. But it's like I have toothpaste that's fluoride in it, and it's like I'm not concerned about that. So
that is the only truly recognized and actually scientifically proven beneficial application of fluoride is when topically applied to the gums, and it's got warnings all over it. Do not ingest it. Do not swallow.
So it being in the water is actually different from it being in toothpaste that you're supposed to spit out.
Oh yeah. We're talking about ingesting.
Yeah, in the 40s and 50s, I mean, there was TV commercials, public service commercials about don't give your kids fluoridated toothpaste.
Yeah, you weren't supposed.
They're not smart enough to not swallow it, and it's bad for you.
Yeah. Like on the tube, it still says if you swallow more than a pea size amount, called poison control or whatever. Like,
exactly.
I would say to Zane then first, like from a libertarian perspective, even if fluoride was this magical unicorn cure-all elixir, like don't put it in the water because then you have no choice about it, and then you can't dose properly or whatever. Like everyone drinks different volumes of water, you know what I mean? Like if this is an agent that you're supposed to get a certain amount, like why are we putting it you also absorb it in your skin in like the hot shower kind of a thing. Like
my lawn doesn't have teeth, my car doesn't have teeth. My high school football field doesn't have teeth. Like, the golf course doesn't have teeth. I mean, just look at most of the uses of water. Like why? And it's forced medication.
It's forced medication on one end. It's also,
even if it was absolutely necessary and absolutely beneficial.
Right.
If that was the case, why don't we put vitamin C in water? Scurvy is making a comeback in the elderly population.
Any other thing, like LSD. But it also is a subsidized toxic waste removal program, basically. It's putting toxic waste from one industry or multiple industries into the water. So it's in essence two things. It's subsidizing hazardous waste removal because they don't know what to do with it. And then it's putting it in the water, and then we could talk about various other like theories about the pineal gland calcifying and like pacifying the masses or whatever, and the Nazis.
Well, that's where we learned it. Stalin did it first. Hitler learned it from Stalin. They both, both of their prison camps, the water was heavily fluoridated. It was already naturally fluoridated.
More than ours, but
that's a clear distinction to make too. You get up in the mountains or you get over near the ocean, there's going to be a natural amount of fluoride present in that stuff. But
which is why you don't need to add anything. Like
what's being added to the water by the municipal governments is not the naturally occurring calcium fluoride that's actually beneficial when applied topically. They're adding sodium hexafluorosilicate and hydrofluorosilicic acid. Both of these are toxic chemicals recognized by the EPA as neurotoxins. Yeah. Which, oddly enough, RFK Jr. is actually leading some of these lawsuits against the EPA on this.
Interesting. And they're so corrosive to metals too that they have to replace the section of pipe all the time that they add it to the water mains, like because it corrodes the fucking pipes, like it eats through the pipe.
The only substance on the planet more corrosive than the fluoride they put in municipal water is Botox.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh yeah, but Botox is like blood on that movie Aliens. But that stuff and fluoride, they both melt concrete.
That's nasty.
I mean, it's not hard to find some local news stations talking about there was a hazmat activity. One of the fluoride trucks erupted, and you see the sidewalk just melting, and people are in hazmat suits trying to rake it. Nothing to see here, guys.
Game over, man. But right here, this is Zach that pulled up about the
it calcifies your pineal gland, which your pineal gland is responsible for your circadian rhythm, your production of melatonin, which also regulates.
And then between you and me, though, it's the third eye.
Yes, well, I was getting to that too. But so melatonin counteracts what's the stress hormone?
Oxytocin.
Was that cortisol? Melatonin counteracts cortisol. So not only are you all of a sudden you're not sleeping well, your endocrine system's messed up, which that's how you get a whole host of things. Depression, gender dysphoria, all kinds of stuff like that when your endocrine system gets disrupted. And there's other chemicals. These PFAS chemicals are in the water. You get the bisphenol A. And then its counterpart, bisphenol S, BPS, which is worse. All these other chemicals, but then as well, the pineal gland is known as the seat of the soul through many ancient civilizations. Yeah. Because it also produces what?
Oh, it's wait.
DMT.
Yeah. I had a brain fart.
Yeah, and that's I found an old letter from the Vatican. That they acknowledge that the soul enters a fetus in the pregnant mother's womb. They say like around 21 days, which is kind of like a weird prescription. But around that time, that's when you start detecting DMT in a pregnant mother's urine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's why
also,
that's why it's dubbed the spirit molecule.
The Vatican has that big statue with like the pine cone thing, and they say it's a pine cone and not a pineal gland or whatever. Like their description of it and why it's there is that it's a pine cone and it has something to do with like, I don't know, some pine nut thing in Jesus or who knows. But like it's a pineal gland basically, and it's borrowed from even older religions like Buddhism and such. But anyway.
Cool.
Look up the pine cone statue in the Vatican. It's not a pine cone, but
wow,
yeah,
that's interesting. There's occult symbolism and everything if you really look for it. Just because, I mean, that stuff's just older than anything else.
Yeah.
So before we move off this, because I'm glad that I asked about this because I had no idea about any of that. But like, if I went to the local water utility and asked the guy there, why are you putting fluoride in the water? What would the response be? Like, what is the line for what they are saying the benefit is?
What did you say, Stephen?
Boss told me to.
Boss told me to.
If I could ask the boss and he would like, what is the supposed benefit of it? Like, I'm legitimately asking. Like,
the whole country gets a toxic chemical put in the water because of one study in 1948 or something, and it was about the tooth enamel, and it's even misnomer level. Like you can't repair tooth enamel. You can sometimes prevent some damage with tooth enamel. You can't even repair it. So most people aren't even accurate about that.
Well, and then you look at the actual stats and dental fluorosis, over fluoridation of tooth enamel has spiked since it was mandatory.
Have you seen
so here's something weird too. If you just want to look at how other countries have approached this. So you have Okinawa over in Japan. Mm-hmm. One of the most polite cultures on the planet, and recently in the past couple of years they've been revolting against our military presence there, but one of the ways and among the reasons was we were mandating fluoridation of their water. Part of our continued occupation of Japan is they can't have a military, we are their military, and they have to fluoridate their water, and there's all kind of other silly stuff we're just imposing on their culture. So what they've done is they have an optional fluoride rinse after lunch in the school cafeterias for the children. Mm-hmm. And it's administered by, a dental professional or a nurse. And they just sit outside and, the kids have waivers submitted by the parents, and they see that they just do a little swish and spit and make them rinse. And
that's a better system, if anything. I mean, I really don't even think that fluoride is that necessary, even at that level. Right. I don't even use it in my toothpaste at this point. I get a fucking enough of it from the water that I can't filter out because I don't have, I can have a filter, like a carbon-based filter will get out like certain like chlorines and things like that, but it's not going to get out, dissolved metals at that like level.
Oh yeah, you got to have that silver impregnated ceramic.
Yeah, honestly, like a serious filter for that or whatever. But I've always made sort of what if we at least did, even though, I would prefer even more action than that. But what if we just offered it as an option for go to your, if you want to subsidize the shit or whatever. And if you want people to have free access to it, not like our government ever does anything else for free for its people. So it's fucking stands out as fishy to me.
Well, except for birth control and abortions,
Well, okay, but exactly
those are free
things
for
that get
too.
A little weird, right? But if you wanted to, then just go to Walgreens and grab a free capsule that your government paid for to stash there to drop in your water and swish or drink it or whatever the hell. You put it up your butt, whatever you want to do with it. But don't make me drink it. You know what I mean?
There you
and
go.
It's so expensive to remove and so hard that they know no one's going to, or not no one. But
there's been a law in the books here in Georgia since 2010-ish.
The tax-free.
Yeah, you get
rebate.
You get a tax write-off for buying any fluoride filters, because it's acknowledged that if you're a diabetic, if you're on dialysis of any kind, or if you're an infant, this stuff is not good for you. Pay no heed to the extra fluoridated baby water on the aisle at Walmart.
Yeah. Oh my God. What?
That is insidious.
Extra fluoridated?
Yes.
For babies? That's insane.
Yes. And
even in the 50s, they were like, don't give it to kids. That's crazy.
And what they have on the label is double what the EPA allows. I don't know how they continue to sell this crap.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's absolutely wild. So even if it was beneficial, why are you doubling the dose for an infant?
I mean,
it doesn't even have a functioning immune system yet.
Between how much my girlfriend is a diabetic type 1, and between how much I drink and how much I'm already putting my body to have to process all of the alcohol that I consume, like we can't afford other toxins, you know, like
that's right.
We're susceptible enough.
It's too busy with alcohol. It can't handle fluoride.
Yeah, no, man. My kidneys and my liver, they got enough to do, man. Like I can't do fluoride too. Like that's crazy.
That's exactly right.
Cheers.
Yeah. So on top of that tax rebate law in Georgia, cheers, by the way.
Yeah.
On top of the tax rebate law, there was a law that was just passed, I think it was 2019 here in Georgia, that expanded the capabilities of dental hygienists. So, you know, dental hygiene, I think it's like a 2-year degree. Some folks can get it in like a year with some on-the-job training, but it expanded their capabilities.
To give you the jab?
Basic teeth cleanings and fluoride treatments during the teeth cleanings used to, you know, just 3 years ago had to be overseen by a licensed dentist. That's silly. You know, a little bit of schooling, a little bit of on-the-job training, you should be able to clean teeth. You know, you should only have to be an actual medical doctor dentist to do surgery, right? So
I don't
Georgia's
think I
just
ever
now
had
catching
a
on to
dentist. Is this state by state or is this Georgia?
Yes. Yeah, this is state regulations.
Okay.
Yeah. So Georgia just passed that. So, you know, if we wanted to do something akin to Okinawa, Japan, for instance, you know, where we have an optional fluoride rinse overseen by a dental hygienist employed by the school or contracted through the school
or even a teacher that's trained or something, or I don't know.
I mean, you're not even touching the teeth. If it's a fluoride rinse, you're literally just giving kids a cup.
But the state still requires some kind of certification for that.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
And then how much do we all swish and cover all our teeth when we just drink water? And what about the people that drink water through a straw or whatever? And like, you know, if we're talking about getting it for the surface of your teeth from consuming water, like, I don't know, man.
Don't give the state any ideas. Next thing you know, we'll have to have a licensed dentist oversee us any time that we drink tap water.
Maybe they should, you know,
because you're administering medication at that point.
At this point,
you know,
with the amount
and if you think the fluoride's bad too, I've got a buddy that's training to be a water surgeon, and I joke and call him a water surgeon. I don't know exactly what the certification is, but you know, I bring up the fluoride to him, and he's just like, dude, he's like, if you knew how much lead got in the water on a regular basis, you'd be way more concerned with that. But fun fact,
I'm equally concerned with that.
Hydrofluorosilicic acid is like a lead magnet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it will bond with it, and
that's one of the primary things it bonds with is lead and other toxic chemicals like, you know, radium and cesium and things like that. You know, if they
Herculeum and
there you go. Now you're just trying to sound more photosynthesis.
This conversation has put me over the edge. I'm getting one of those heavy duty water filters now.
There we go.
It's not a bad idea, man.
Yeah, so, you know, Alexapure is a cheap one. You know, the Big Berkey is the classic.
My grandpa has one of those, but I kind of balked when I found out that it was like $400.
Totally worth it, though. I mean, you can take straight up black pond water and get a crystal clear glass of Bobby Boucher H2O coming out of that thing.
Yeah, he's right. Honestly, Chad and I here, like the real best way to get rid of everything, reverse osmosis, like push it through a screen. And
the problem with reverse osmosis, you know, that is the surefire way to just get dihydrogen monoxide coming out of your tap. But
you take everything out of the water, all the
you
good
have
stuff
no
too,
essential minerals at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
You have to take a mineral supplement if you're only using RO water.
I was going to bring that up as well, but it's better to do that if you know what you're doing, and then to replace like the certain salts and minerals that you need or whatever. Speaking of salt, because we were talking about like one of the like sodium like chloride bases or whatever to, you know, because it's kind of like sodium is like a metal, and it's one of the bases for the fluoride, like chemically or whatever. But just a side note is that like monosodium glutamate or whatever, the MSG, people freak out over MSG, but that's actually the salt that's more naturally occurring in foods like celery and whatever. And that a little bit of MSG in your diet is not a bad thing. And people are like, I don't eat any MSG or whatever. And it's like, it's only a problem when you put tons in your food to the point where you puff up like you know, just like got dehydrated level and you're
right.
I've been
dehydrated. Fight everybody. I thought it was an all-you-could-eat buffet. Why are you ushering me out?
But speaking of like minerals and salts that the body needs, MSG is actually one of them that's good for the body in small amounts. Like
right. But it is known to induce thirst. Which, by the way, Sackler family, if you're listening, I had this great idea. You could come out of bankruptcy. We could have canned water and put a little bit of MSG in it.
And then I'll just put that water.
People will be like, "Oh, that was delicious. I could go for some water right now."
The water cycle, yeah.
Anyhow, I can assure you that anytime I visit the Supreme Buffet, I'm getting more than a little bit of MSG.
Oh, a lot of it, yeah, for sure. See, that's too much, but
just imagine, how much money your local city government could save if they weren't adding fluoride, because there is a federal law that recommends it, but it's state laws that mandate it.
Yeah.
And then federal law recommends it, and it says if you do it, we'll help you. Yeah. We'll subsidize it, but you can only do it in this level of trace amounts. Trace amounts.
Just think of all the cluster bombs we could send to Ukraine if we didn't fluoridate the water.
That's exactly right.
What if you bombed with fluoride? That'd be nasty.
There you go.
That would probably classify though as chemical warfare.
Maybe so. Endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Probably not good. Yeah.
Which that's some of the reason that Russia stopped importing our produce several years ago.
Really?
During the Obama years, because that was he and Pooty Poot were going back and forth. Obama would ban this, Putin would ban that. Obama would ban this, Putin would ban that. They were having these trade wars, and Putin banned the import of our apples because we coat some of our produce with a chemical called dimethylamine or DMA. And your standard apple, so down here in Georgia, if I go buy a Washington apple, a Rainier Washington apple, something like that, that thing was probably picked back in January.
What's the DMA? Is it a preservative? What is it?
Yes. Yeah. It's that waxy coating.
I hate the wax coating, and it doesn't let the fruit breathe at all or whatever. But
exactly. Exactly. So like the apple inside sometimes can be just totally rotten.
It's mealy and disgusting, but it looks bright red. Like
yes. Yeah. That's why Russia stopped importing our apples, among other things. Yeah. So they cut those off, and now all of a sudden I can't have a Kalashnikov rifle.
And oh man, I want one of those. But I think it was after World War II when we had the stash of like chemical weapons and things like that. Maybe it was World War I actually. When was the Geneva Convention and all that, and like they banned the chemical warfare? Was that after World War I?
That was a trivia question several weeks ago. And
what was it again?
I forget what the answer was.
Was it? Because that's what's in my brain is because we weren't sure if it was World War I.
I think there were two sets of them. One
that's why
was passed after World War I and one after World War II.
I think that's what there was like an amendment to the Geneva Convention or something, so that's why we were confused. But whatever one that they banned like the certain chemical weapons and you couldn't have stashes of chemical weapons and it was like a war crime to use them and blah blah blah. We took all of that, and instead of trying to again find a way to dispose of the chemical waste, we then diluted it and sprayed it on food as a pesticide and turned it into a pesticide, and that's actually what got our huge pesticide crop.
The mustard gas from World War I became the chemo drug known as tamoxifen.
Is that right?
Yes.
Jesus.
Italian soldiers, because the Italians. They were like, hey, guys, this is trench warfare. You're probably not coming home. So, if you guys got a raging tumor, if you got something real bad with you, how about you guys go hop out there and do your civic duty?
Oh, and then they noticed and
they'd come back home without a tumor, just to be healthy.
Wow.
Like, what happened to you? He's like, I don't know. I got stuck in mustard gas for a few days, and I'm all good now.
Jesus, that's so wild. I think we had you had mentioned this at some point before, and I have a foggy memory of it. This is again.
Yeah, so tamoxifen is that chemo drug. They call it the Red Devil.
That's crazy.
And it was discovered through the use of mustard gas in warfare.
So what you're saying
failed
is
successfully.
So war has a silver lining to it, is what you're saying.
It's got its benefits. It really does. But the problem is it kills everything, including your immune system.
Yeah.
So that's with the fluoride stuff. There's plenty of options that if it's truly beneficial, you can hand it out at the health department. You can have the optional fluoride rinse school programs. You can do this whole host of things, and you just don't have to spend so much time and energy and manpower training municipalities on the hazmat protocols. I mean, because they got to get in full Tyvek suits if they're even in the room with the stuff being administered. And I don't know if you hear the radio commercials for variable frequency drives. The guy with EMA Inc. He's always talking the variable frequency drives, and he goes, and if you don't know what they are, this commercial's not for you.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
That's
Apparently
what they're
it's not for me then. Oh, okay. I was like, it's not.
They're for
me
administering
then,
fluoride and other hazardous chemicals into the water supply. I can see, on some level, the use for chlorine and chloramine, which is chlorine and ammonia mixed together, because there's just stuff that lays dormant in the pipes.
Right.
And you don't know sometimes if you're going through copper or ductile iron, or in the case of Flint, Michigan, or God forbid Jackson,
lead.
Mississippi. You've got these 100-year-old lead pipes.
My dad's a surveyor, and he was working out in the Portland area for a while, and they had pipes that were so old out there in spots. They were made of wood, bro.
Yes,
wood
I've seen
pipes.
those. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and then it took them like 100 years to figure out that you shouldn't have a sewer line
with wood.
With wood.
That's so.
This is kind of leaching out into the soil as it goes.
The Romans knew not to do that, dude. That's crazy. Like, what are we doing with this timber pipe? Anyway.
Yeah,
that blew my mind. I did not think that we built any pipe, whether sewer
and then
or
pre 1950. They didn't have the thought to take clay pipe and put it in the oven first.
So
it wasn't
clay?
Porous. So
wet clay.
They just let it dry, and it would just once it got wet, it would just leach out whatever was in it.
That's insane.
Oh yeah, but that was
they're just keeping out on the kiln.
That was when they discovered the vitrification process. You had vitrified clay pipe that was added to municipalities in the late 40s, early 50s.
Right. Yeah. That's fun.
So, but I mean, all the training. You got to buy the chemical itself. You have to have these special engines and drives and transmissions to administer the stuff. You have to have all the training, all the oversight. And if one of the trucks ever ruptures on the way to the scene, it melts asphalt. It's horrible.
It's nasty. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm all for finding ways for secondary product uses, byproduct things, and coming up with a home for these things and not wasting things. And when you distill alcohol and you get basically acetone and some other thing that's a byproduct of distilling alcohol, the stuff that'll make you go blind if you do the wrong thing making moonshine, if you don't distill it enough. Methanol and acetone.
Yeah.
And but that's, I don't know, nail polish remover essentially is acetone. Right. And we found a commercial use for it. And I'm not saying to drink it, but it has a function of paint thinner and shit. And yeah. Right. Making meth, it has a nice cozy home in the aftermarket here of meth making. But but with something like fluoride, it's just so toxic that we're forcing a home for it. And in this particular case, I'm more for no. We don't need to find a home for all this fluoride. We might even should reconsider our practices of making all this fertilizer and find a different way to do more natural farming instead of making all this fertilizer in the first place, because that's also really bad. And all the fertilizer that causes algae blooms and things in the river.
And it's killing all our pollinators. It's destroying the bee population. A lot of these pesticides and herbicides that we use that are nicotine based. Nicotine based pesticides. Yeah, they cause honeybees to just turn inside out. I mean, it's just awful. So it's just, why do we have to have non-native grass?
We talked about the grass. Yeah.
This monoculture grass yard that's not native to your area. With these Chinese Bradford pear trees that are god awful. They smell like fish meal. After a fish fry.
Some trees smell like cat urine for real.
They're invasive species. They kill the birds and bugs that try to eat them. They break all the time. They just fall apart. They're lightning rods. Stuff like that. Like, why do we have to have monoculture yards? Why can't you have a little bit of wild grass? Obviously you have to live outside of an HOA area.
HOAs, we should have a whole thing on how bad HOAs are. Honestly, I can't stand HOAs, but not a whole thing, a segment. But
hey, HOAs are technically our libertarian utopia.
What?
Right? Like, in the absence of all other government, it just basically, like, you just answer to your HOA and you look to them for your safety, right?
Okay, but that's not the HOA that I'm
That's
thinking
more of a syndicalist approach, but
we can go into this on another episode if you really want to get into it. The 30-second explanation is that yes, you're kind of right, but you don't have to like every social institution that's not government. It's not like everything that's not government is automatically good.
I got you.
Also, there are plenty of other governing authorities that aren't the government that maybe you should just be subject to, even if you don't like them, because otherwise we'll have anarchy in the way that most people think of anarchy, which is everybody doing whatever the heck they want with no rules and people breaking all the windows.
Right. But your modern day anarcho-capitalist, it's like, I'm not saying there's going to be no rules. I'm just saying, like, you're not forcing rules upon me.
Right.
All the rules are voluntarily entered into.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, there you go.
You put your garage or your trash cans on the outside of the garage, not the inside. Like, unincorporated, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
My buddy lives in unincorporated territory, and it's cool. It's like nothing. Like, in terms of like jurisdiction, like it falls nowhere. Like, I love it.
Yeah. Well, here in Georgia, the land is still divided into militia districts in some areas.
Oh,
once you get down, south of like Macon in particular.
I've been to Macon.
Yeah. But once you get down, south of that line, not only are the gnats prevalent, but the way the land is divided, it's based on the militia districts that were rooted in when the state was originally colonized. Who's
one of the Allman Brothers? I'm sorry, I was trying to think.
Yeah, that's Macon.
Yeah. I was like, I went to a grave out there. Or
and
something.
then, oh gosh, who borrowed their guitar recently? Was it Jason Alden?
Biden.
Yeah, it was one of the country guys borrowed their guitar for a concert.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like a big thing.
Jake just brought up a Jason Aldean story, and I drink too much and smoke too much, and I cannot remember what it was, but it was good story, I think. Does Zane remember?
We were talking about a song.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get together and they all drink heavily fluoridated water, and then
and then they write a song,
and then they try that in a ball gown. Yeah.
And then if you play the song backwards, it says that to love your government.
Yes.
If you play backwards, yeah. New CO2 removal factories? What does that mean?
Are you talking about trees? Pretty sure God put them here, bro. I mean, like that's they turn CO2 into oxygen. They're fascinating.
It's magic, bro. It's pure magic. It's black magic.
Right? Well, there's I think it's in Spain in some areas that I've seen some modern day architect that he's being heralded for his nuanced approach to environmentalism, basically. But he's
what does he just plant grass on the roof, like?
Well, he's coating the walls in some kind of moss.
Okay.
Some kind of fern or vine or whatever, some kind of moss on the outside of the building. He's planting stuff on the roof. It's so like the building looks like it's alive.
Yeah. It's honestly cool.
Because it really is.
Down. Yeah.
And he's building these neat little, atriums and these archway courtyards and stuff that are just, trellises covered with, vines and moss. And
no, that's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
More plants is better, man. I love it. Like moss, whether it's like winter or summer, it's a good insulator. If you have things on the roof, it actually helps like keep a lot of your heating and cooling bill down. And then it, obviously produces oxygen. Like it's a cool thing. I'm into that.
And I've seen some specially designed bricks too. That they're supposed to, pull smog and pollution out of the air, things like that. The only problem
is it like a carbon-based brick or something like that?
Yeah,
that's like bonding with things.
It's basically a carbon stone that they paint red.
Maybe that's what these factories are producing. They're just condensing the carbon into a brick or whatever. But how much carbon does it take to run the factory to then reduce the carbon? So I'm like, what are we doing? I don't know. I don't know about this. I have to look into this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then you use the hand dryer in the bathroom and it's all done.
Yeah. That better be a geothermal powered factory, or otherwise I feel like we're just like chasing our own tail with this one. I don't know, but plant a tree and be done with it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. That's the mantra when I was coming up through school. Back in my day, it was reduce, reuse, recycle. It's come out recently that a lot of the areas don't recycle.
My apartment
aluminum does get recycled, but glass, unless you separate the colors, they just throw it in the same bin and just let it go. Because that's.
Can't we just make brown bottles out of like all of it and just call it a day? You know what I mean?
Technically, yeah. Or that crappy cardboard, the $25 burger joints, put your stuff in when you get it to go.
Yeah.
This is made with a recycled to go box, and it's just soggy piece of
crap. And it falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of reduce, reuse, recycle, though, specifically the reduce part, that is literally anti-human. The story of human progress is that I get to use more.
What if it was reduce?
Spoken like a true capitalist, Zane. Proud of you.
Because we can come up with ways to like reduce impact or reduce waste, not like reduce usage or consumption of a commodity as much as like the packaging of a thing can be like less wasteful. But
there is a lot of waste. Like you can turn the sink off while you're brushing your teeth.
Fair.
Stuff like that.
All right, I guess that's fair. But when the Greens are saying reduce, reuse, recycle, what I'm pretty sure they mean most of the time, and definitely what your average person is hearing, is use less and not necessarily just cut it. Because here's the thing. In a free market, you are incentivized to use less if what you were using before is very wasteful. Like if you're charged for if leaving the water on when you brush your teeth was going to make your water bill be higher, and you're like, you know what, I don't need to use this extra water because it's going to make my water bill be higher, and there's no point in using that water because it's doing nothing. That already provides the proper incentive to turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth. You don't need a bunch of moralizers telling you you're evil because you're not turning the water off. Like if it could arguably be so little water compared to all of the other industrial agricultural uses of water that turning the water off when you brush your teeth, that is an inconvenience to me enough to justify actually not turning it off. And that's a decision that you would make based off the price of the additional water that you're using.
There you go.
This reminds me. Oh, go ahead, Steven.
I was going to say, yeah, and then the acronym for that is, 3 R's, RRR, which is their meme, of the standard environmentalist.
This reminds me of, and so like the distinction between like private, like citizen usage of a commodity or commercial or industrial, like how much is being used or wasted on one side. Do you remember the commercial, like back in like, I don't know if it was like the 80s or something. It was before my time, but I'm aware of this, right? There was like the Native American going down like the river on the canoe, and he like sees the litter and he like cries, and he sees people throwing litter onto the grass or whatever, and he cries. I don't know. The crying Indian commercial. It was a whole thing in the time, but it was a message to like not litter, right? But when you break it down, like, so the group that like funded the ad, it was like on everyone's TV, like, what is it? A public service announcement kind of ad or whatever.
And in between Saturday cartoons.
Yeah.
You have one of those pop up. Yeah.
And my parents remember this. I brought this up to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, we saw that when we were kids." Maybe I think it was like 80s, but maybe it was late 70s. But the ad was paid for by these. They sound like third-party, like environmental focus groups or whatever. Thank you. Yes. Oh my God. This is it.
Oh my God.
This is it. So the groups that funded this are actually groups that were started by like Mars and Coca-Cola and all these, and Kraft or whatever, all the, the Unilever, the big like Procter and Gamble, yeah, the companies that make all the packaging waste. Because this was at a time when things were starting, I don't know whatever year it was things were shifting into more and more packaging waste and plastics and things like that. And this was targeted at the people to be like, you dirty piece of shit, throw away your trash in the fucking receptacle. You're horrible. You're ruining the planet. And it was taking the pressure and the onus away from, yeah, there you go. And then he cries. It takes the pressure away.
Single tear.
Yeah. Because it wasn't a bag of Red Man. That's why he was upset.
He was like, it should have been Crystal Burger. Like, no, but
well, the funny
anyway,
thing is, his tribe sold the land to him. That's where the casino is. His tribe sold the land to him, and now he gets paid to pick up the trash. So he's crying because he just made so much money off the land.
And the thing with littering is too, you can solve it just by more clearly defining property rights. Like if rivers and riverbanks and other areas were actually owned by somebody that wasn't the government, then if you littered, then whoever owned the property would have a claim against you. Why are you throwing your can onto my property? Whereas if you have government-owned property and the government's trying its best to, they're not really trying to manage it, but even if they were trying their best to manage it, which again, they're not, but even if they were, they still can't do it because there's a government and they have misaligned incentives and they have no idea what's going on. Then people can just litter wherever they want, and you have no idea whether it's worthwhile to, because there are some areas that maybe it's okay if people litter, and then because like at a ballpark, if you're at a ballpark, do you really feel bad if you leave your drink container in the seat? Not really, because you know that some
you guys are saying a similar thing.
Come and clean it up after you anyway, because the ballpark owners know it's easier to send 10 people through the stadium after the game's over than try to convince 20,000 people that they're terrible people if they don't personally throw their drink cup away.
Right. And if only Canadian Aldi shoppers would go see baseball games, they wouldn't need the cleaning service and the ticket prices would drop by half, right?
Yeah.
Or
so
more.
In a similar way, if a private property owner would have a much better idea than the government would be whether the best solution to the problem of littering is to either employ people to pick it up or to try and come up with some punishment mechanism for people that are littering, or maybe it's a location where it's not that bad if there's litter and we just shouldn't worry about it.
I want to circle back real quick to the phenomenon, though, of corporations disguising themselves as a third-party group and then putting the onus on us to feel like we are the ones that need to clean up the litter problem, and
like the
they're
Sierra
allowed
Club,
to make whatever.
People like that.
What's the Sierra? Is that another fake?
They have a lot of environmental companies under their umbrella.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of red meat eating, cigar smoking, jet plane flyers.
Yeah, it's a facade, and it's honestly it's a public image thing, and it's putting onus on us, and it's getting us talking in a certain way while other people get away with private jets and whatever, and exactly. And I always just like to turn the spotlight back to the man behind the curtain kind of a thing or whatever. And but there's an interesting conversation to be had in the nuances, like in the weeds of litter and things like that more specifically. But in general, there was a cultural push to get us to feel like it was our responsibility, not at the time of changing what type of packaging production was happening, not the responsibility of the manufacturers. And they knew that, and psychologically they instilled that, and one of their tactics was a televised ad that looked like, because they couldn't put craft
This message brought to you by Coke.
Yeah, exactly, because then it would be fishy. So they banded together. This is an interesting thing. Multiple different, companies and industries with a similar interest, and made a fake third-party group to then label it as so it looked legit and whatever, and then aired it, and then all of our parents saw it. So
yeah, that's a really good point, and I know that I take us sometimes down into rabbit holes of
that's okay, we like rabbit holes
and into anarcho-capitalist theory, but if I'm not doing that, then I'm really not providing any value to the show.
No, we love it. Yeah.
Practically speaking, that's a very interesting point that I didn't know about, but yeah, leave it to pretty much anybody to try and blame somebody else.
Well, the government is not the only one that engages in the Hegelian dialectic. That's why there's a revolving door of these. What Barry Goldwater warned about was the interlocking corporate directorships. There's this revolving
the Dick
door.
Cheney door, man.
That's right. Yeah. So, Donald Rumsfeld. He started with Searle Chemical Company. He's the reason aspartame is on the shelves. You know, that's a recent thing. Like aspartame causes cancer. Donald Rumsfeld put that in the market, y'all.
Yeah,
he was an attorney for several chemical companies.
Formaldehyde or wood alcohol, or like what does it turn into with the acid in the gut? Like,
yeah,
it turns into something nasty in the gut. Wood
alcohol. So I mix up the two. Aspartame and saccharin are the two, prime evils of fake sugar.
Yeah. There's erythritol, and there's a bunch of other ones.
Well, erythritol's fine. It just gives you some diarrhea.
And that's not as bad, right? Yeah.
It's
too much of it.
But it negates carbs, bro. You know, if you're on keto, you just hey, I ate some carbs. Oops, let me down some erythritol and just crap myself real quick and
just to consume it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's eat some erythritol, just like our caveman ancestors did.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that paleo? That diet? Yeah. Is this paleo?
But that's seriously that's how the keto bros do their math. Is gram for gram, erythritol negates carbs. That's how you have that. What is it? Rebel ice cream. They're like, oh, this keto friendly, and you look at it like there's 17 carbs in this pint. Like, but there's enough erythritol to negate 15 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh?
Talk about conflagration. That's what the bathroom is. Yeah.
The bowel conflagration. Oh, that's hilarious.
There's going to be a rainstorm moving into that restroom.
Absolutely, yeah. You're going to get a deluge of ash and fragments.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. But okay, so let's go into the other one. And I'm sure some of this stuff is going to bleed into this. Zach, if you're still with us, let's go to the coup in Niger. So we brought this up a few weeks ago, because this was a thing. I'm like, why in the heck is this all of a sudden popular news? And then this popped up, and I was reading through this, and so there's a strategic pipeline that's going through there. Oddly enough, so this is going back to the show's title. This is us throwing oil on the fire here. Look at this. Look at one of the groups. So the coup in Niger could lead to the deployment of the Wagner forces in the country.
Wagner forces?
The dude that just, like, Putin's general that just tried to technically overthrow him?
Oh, okay.
The Wagner forces. What the heck are they doing there?
I've been under a rock, so this story I know so little about.
Yeah, so the coup leader, he did a televised broadcast of aired their grievances out of why they overthrew the democratically duly elected government. And among their grievances was that they were squandering foreign aid money, particularly from the United States.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. Yeah,
and so now you got the Wagner forces come in to keep the peace. This just screams wag the dog to me right here. I mean, if this isn't early 70s Afghanistan all over again, I don't know what is.
Viva Poutine! That makes me want some French fries, man.
Right. For our audio listeners, there's a picture in this article, and it's a picture of a crowd, and the guy at the front of the crowd is holding up a big sign that says Viva Poutine.
The way it's spelled just makes me want curds and fries, man. I don't know.
I'm glad we won that war, so we don't have to deal with all that. Yes, Zach. Vog the dog. You're exactly right. And if you want to really know what I'm referring to, there's a good movie, Charlie Wilson's War, that kind of dives into that of how we got into Afghanistan to begin with. We went in there in the early 70s. It was proxy war battles. We armed, funded, and trained the Mujahideen, and gave them the means to repel the Russian forces, thinking that we were going to rush into this place that has been an absolute shithole since the beginning of civilization, that we're just going to rush in there and like, oh, hey, there's $3 trillion worth of lithium in the mountains. We're just going to go in there and harvest that stuff. Sorry, bro, that hadn't happened. People have been trying to do that kind of thing for thousands of years in that place. Not necessarily for lithium, but for all the various other resources there.
No, what's the ancient aliens? 3,000 years ago, they educated the local chieftains about the lithium.
That's right. Yeah. Because the atmosphere is breaking down and they need more lithium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they needed a lot of superconductors 3,000 years ago.
Right. But that was, and then here's the weird part, even after all that, after everything we allegedly did for Afghanistan, once they do start to harvest the rare earth minerals there, China has more mining rights than we do.
China mines everything because they don't give a shit about what it does to the land, basically. But
and then going back to Elizabeth's comment, so the government service of disposing of the trash. Guess what we do with our trash after it got?
We send it to China and they burn it. Some of it.
Supposedly, but now we have an island almost the size of Texas floating in the Pacific.
There's so many places.
It's real easy for our bleeding heart people to make documentaries about it.
Yeah.
Because this is obviously American trash. Look, it's Aquafina bottles and Coca-Cola bottles, and and it's written in English on the labels and things.
Coca-Cola.
We pay China to dispose of it. They drive halfway out in the ocean, dump the crap, come back and get another load.
It's some of it's dumping, some of it's burning or whatever, but we basically just give it to somebody that has softer regulations than we do, and then they just do whatever they want with it.
Right.
It's the blind eye, the don't ask, don't tell of trash or whatever.
That's why that was one of the questions that was going around of Mega Millions was $1.5 billion recently. What would you do if you won that? It's I would start a timber company in Brazil. And then the federal government, the U.S. federal government, would pay me to
get
not
paid
cut
not
down
to
trees.
burn it. Yeah.
And I would turn that into $10 billion overnight.
You can't get more passive than that.
That's exactly right. So that's some of the stuff that's going on there. Why are we not surprised? Let's see here. Last link isn't working. Okay. Zach's giving us some notes. Sorry about that. So, why am I not surprised that, everything that's going on in Niger is over some oil? Now, I haven't had time, admittedly, to do a deep dive into the story to figure out who are the conflicting oil pipe owners. But what I do know is that this current coup that's going on, if it takes over and this pipeline is kiboshed, China stands to gain more than us. That was something that was mentioned in that article. So, that was pretty interesting.
And then the U.S. is going to bomb it.
Yeah, maybe so. Because that's the whole reason for presence in Africa. Yeah, it's not so we can actually allow them to industrialize and enter the 21st century. Because they would obviously, they've got everything they need to build Wakanda.
They've got most of the resources of the world, man.
Right. It's just you have these imperialist forces all around them, not just us.
Yeah.
Keeping them down,
Yeah, one of the big ones is they're selling yellow cake uranium to France, and then France is enriching it and then selling it for way, way more. So France is now bombing them because the coup has, I guess, left it questionable whether they're going to get their yellow cake.
Exactly.
I just realized that you can have enriched flour and make yellow cake, and that sentence has so many of the same words that would you get flagged, red flagged, if you were to send that text to somebody,
Maybe so. You can just say yellow cake, red mercury.
I source all my yellow cake from Little Debbie.
Little Debbie, yeah. I'm a Betty Crocker man myself, but I'm kidding.
Oh, there you go. All right, Zach, see if that last link works. I just put it in the private chat there.
At least when Zane gets us in the weeds, he gets us into the weeds of something that matter, and I'm derailing us with cake. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine.
It's content. This is what the people want.
I'm here for comic relief, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's totally why the UN Blue Hats are there. And I'm sure in Sudan and Niger and all those kind of things. So here we go. This is a chart. While we're throwing oil on the fire here.
Oil on the fire.
There was there was a chart that came out. Of course, PMS NBC has been putting this out once a month. Here's the inflation breakdown, but it's for July.
Did you say PMS NBC? What is that?
Yeah, well, they have a show called The Cycle, and they all act like they have PMS.
I was like, what? This is a real thing? There's so many letters in that. I was like, I have to know if this is a real thing. Gotcha.
I think it's funny how we started the show making fun of Bill Gates, and now we're ending on Microsoft news.
Oh no, we're not ending. I've got another one I can throw out there too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
we were concerned about running out of articles, and we're already over time.
I guess we're
not over time. What are you talking about? We're not out of time.
There's no time today.
Yeah, so Zach, if you want to scroll down on that, there's some of the stuff it breaks down. You know, the inflation report was in, and July inflation actually increased, despite what Uncle Jerome promised us right before his last rate increase. So this just goes over some of the things, some of the average price increases and decreases that you see over various items. Movies, theaters, concerts, things like that. Now, of course, that's because of Live Nation and Taylor Swift. We all know that. Then you scroll down on some of the things. It's talking about grocery items. It says the price of butter went down. I remember looking at that. It said butter
not
went down
here,
1%. Dude. I'm like, yeah. Where are you shopping?
Where
for
do you get
bro?
butter? Yeah.
You're buying margarine. You're not buying butter because
I did see that recently, and honestly, the price, the disparity in price between butter and bullshit margarine is getting deeper, or because it's made with such shitty oils or whatever, and it's probably attracting more people. You
don't even need Fabio to sell it to me anymore. If I'm that broke, I might break down and buy it.
I'll just use oil, man. I'll just something else, but honestly, I gotta have butter, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's killing me. It's so expensive, but
now, Kerrygold is my jam. But I mean, it's $7-8 a pound.
Kerrygold's a little rich for my blood, just in terms of not the butter, but the price. But
yeah, well, I
love the butter.
I bounce back and forth. I'll do that. I do Vitality Farms or the European knockoff of both of them. Plugra.
Do you ever get the Amish roll, the 2-pound roll of butter?
Yeah.
That's the way to go, man.
Oh yeah.
Carve off a block of it and just put it on the counter for weeks or whatever, and that's the way I do it.
Yeah, or just make a Paula Deen recipe and it's all gone.
Yeah. Yeah, Paula Deen, 2 recipes done.
Yeah, but so it was going over some of the things that prices have increased on, and it was property leases, automobile prices, automobile rentals, automobile
Has
leases.
anything gone down?
Yeah. So that
Let's
was
start there. It's a smaller list.
That's why they're saying inflation overall is increasing, because the only thing that has really gone down, the margin of things decreasing.
Not margarine, but margin. Yeah.
Well, margarine as well, because it's crap. But it's 2% or less of a decrease in price.
Mm-hmm.
Certain laborers have decreased, and that's just because people are just trying to they can't keep increasing their rates anymore.
Yeah, but that's that's a whole different thing.
But something else is increasing. I don't know if you guys saw this story. Delivery fees. Holy cow.
I just had
the Teamsters just held the UPS hostage. UPS drivers, they're about to negotiate a contract with the Teamsters union.
Okay.
The average UPS driver after 5 years of service is going to be making $170K.
Wait, across 5 years?
After 5, once they're fully vested in the company, fully benefited and all that kind of stuff, the average pay for a driver at UPS is going to be $170K. Now, of course, that factors in their benefits and their pension as well. So, what they're really bringing home in their paycheck is probably 90, 95, but holy crap.
I got into the wrong business, man.
Right.
I'm in the wrong business.
$95K a year, full benefits, full pension, all that. And then you're a member of a union, which, I've known some folks work for UPS here in Peachtree City. And there was a guy that showed up to work drunk, set the truck on fire while he was refueling it.
On accident?
And he got a 2-week paid suspension, and he was back at work delivering packages again.
Oh my God!
So imagine that, you're bringing home 6 figures for that, and the big trade off is you have to work Thanksgiving and Christmas. Okay, well, right. Cool. If you're a single guy,
I've done that
across the country from your family that you hate anyways.
Yeah,
it sounds like a great gig.
I've done that in a lot of industries anyway, and I didn't get $90K or whatever, bartending or whatever.
Right. So. Well, and that's on top of your pension and benefits.
Yeah, you don't get either of those bartending either. So
exactly.
How do you set a car on fire though? while pumping gas?
I mean, it was in a state of disrepair already.
The vehicle was like,
yeah.
Or the gas station.
Also, he didn't turn it off while he was refueling it.
Will that actually do anything?
Well, apparently for some older UPS trucks, it will set them on fire.
Okay, I don't do it. I don't leave it running, but I know it's like frowned upon and like it's like you're not supposed to, but I didn't ever really think about like why. But
yeah. And Zach, if you can get into that last link we put in the private chat. Zane, did you have something?
Yeah, so I know a guy from a men's group in my church who works for UPS corporate. And like they were making contingency plans to like send out their corporate employees. Like he was gonna have to get sent to like Montana to like, and they were gonna have their corporate employees make the deliveries if they couldn't get the strike with the Teamsters sorted out. That appears to have been averted, but like he was a couple days away from having to do that.
Man.
So like the chef is gonna deliver the pizza kind of a system as a short-term stopgap fix or something.
Yeah.
Man, well, and so by the way, while we're talking about burning it down, so we have the BRICS Accords. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Okay, so they have, and especially in the wake of everything President Biden has done against Russia.
Why didn't they call this cribs?
What's that?
I like cribs better than bricks,
Yeah. Well, bricks. I don't know, because that's what they're throwing at us right now. They're throwing bricks into our glass house essentially. So because you get these countries together, you have Brazil and South Africa. You can kind of see whatever, but then you got Russia, India, and China. Those are the three. Correct me if I'm wrong. Per capita, their citizens hold more gold than anywhere else on the planet.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Oh, yeah.
The citizens do?
The citizens do. China has been urging its citizens for the last 5 years in particular to start hoarding gold and precious metals.
Wow. Uh-oh.
Because they're basically, they've kind of almost, underhandedly admitted to their citizens their currency's crap. And we're the great Satan. So obviously they hate us too. And, we're the next best thing to the Chinese yuan to a Chinese citizen. Even though they hate us, we're the only people they hate more than Japan. You get into all this stuff and it's pretty scary. All these folks forming an alliance. So, you have all the economic sanctions we put on China in the last, say, 20 years in particular. And then what we've done to Russia in the last, say, 10 years. We removed Russia a few years ago, removed them from the SWIFT system. So the SWIFT system is how banks pay each other and fund mortgages. And, you got the LIBOR rates and all that kind of stuff, how the banks loan each other money.
Mm-hmm.
So we removed them from that. So it basically crippled Russia's ability to do international trade in U.S. dollars.
Oh, okay.
Which, with us being the reserve currency, it's kind of a bad move.
Yeah.
If you're really cocky, you think you're just shutting them down and allowing them to not do international trade anymore. But with these alliances that Russia had already struck up prior to this and just further annealed because of it, Russia's economy is actually flourishing right now, y'all.
They always find a way.
And it's almost totally removed from US dollars.
That's interesting.
And it's scary as hell because they are a big oil nation. They are a big gold nation. They have lots of natural resources. They have a vast expanse of geography.
When you have as much land as it's a massive amount of just geographically speaking land. The chances that you don't have resources are very low. Like Russia is a large place. Yeah.
So, their citizens haven't been able to make international wire transfers, through Russian banks to whatever, all that kind of stuff. They've found ways around it. So now you have, what's called the Durban Accords, because these countries have annual summits. And I would put this on the radar as more dangerous than a Bilderberg meeting, more dangerous than a Davos meeting. Okay, because this is an international consortium seeking to supplant the world reserve currency.
I'm writing this down to look into this more.
Yeah, so they're meeting in 13 days. August 23rd in Durban, South Africa. The Durban Accords, this edition, the 2023 edition of the Durban Accords, they are supposed to launch an international gold-backed currency. And it's going to be be backed by the gold reserves of these 5 nations.
An international
so
gold
dangerous, but it sounds pretty good to me.
We're a dwarf overnight. So yeah, I mean, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But with countries like China and South Africa at the helm, I don't really trust this is going to be a pro-freedom movement.
Well, I guess there's a difference between what currency people are using and what governments are in control. Because if we go to a more gold-backed currency, that doesn't necessarily mean that those particular governments stay dominant. Like my main line of argument about why people shouldn't be so afraid of China is that we need to remember that central planning doesn't work. And to think that China is going to suddenly overtake the US in terms of raw economic capacity is to make the assumption that central planning works, and it doesn't. China has a whole lot of problems with its economy, and I'm not really concerned about it. Suddenly,
that's why they alone can't do it, but they can leverage the power of other nations.
Yeah, the power of other nations that have their own really...
because, look, I mean, Russia and India alone is a significant portion of the world's grain supply.
Mm.
And then you've got India that's already announced that they're stopping the export of any non-white basmati rice.
Yeah, we talked about that. They're stopping, what is it, jasmine rice and
anything. Well, yes, anything that's not white basmati, they're not exporting it right now.
Yeah,
and that's particularly crappy for a lot of African nations because that's a lot of them, that are impoverished economically. They get a significant amount of their daily calories from rice.
Mm-hmm.
China just had one of the worst monsoons on record. Their harvest sucks. Same thing with India. So that's why they're making that move. Ukraine, they're in absolute turmoil. They're one of the primary sources of fertilizer in the world. So now people that grow grains are having trouble doing that. We've increased our exports. So, just watch out, guys. It's just, if you're particular with some rice or some breads or some stuff like that, that's where the inflation is about to go into turbo power for us.
No, I mean, we're on a bad trend, man, in general, and we could tie this in whether it's like this track and or if it's more like global climate catastrophism or whatever track it is. Like I do honestly think there's going to be some hard times in terms of food shortages and things, and not to be an alarmist about it.
Reuse and recycle. That's we're going to be reusing some sandwich bags. We're going to be flipping them jokers inside out and washing them off and stuff. And,
I mean, I have silicone bags, but I saw something. I mean,
it's definitely important to be prepared for that kind of possibility. I guess, again, a note of optimism. A lot of libertarians, including me, were very concerned about food shortages last winter. And thankfully, at least in the U.S., that did not end up materializing. Now, maybe it'll happen. Just
food costs
last year doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in the future. But
it did happen. I don't know if you paid attention, but the price of eggs went way up this past winter.
That's what it was reflected in cost. Is
February, March, April. We had a food shortage. You just paid more for the food, and you had the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but people were making claims that it was going to be much worse than it actually was.
People didn't starve, right? But
yeah, but that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm talking about, though. So that when I say food, I'm not talking about you're going to be in a bread line with a stamp, for your daily meal, with holes in your clothes, and
it's just going to be
Great Depression
really
all over again. It's not going to be like that immediately. Yeah. The next step is hey, how often do you eat chicken wings now versus 3 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Who's going to go to a bar and pay $1.50 for a wing? Really? That's triple what it was just 5 years ago.
Right.
And technically they're cutting the wing in half and selling it as 2 wings.
Yeah. When did that become a thing where a wing is not the whole wing? A flat and a drumette and the little tip piece. You can't sell these things separate. That's a wing. This is a wing. Get out of here. I also saw in that article, there was a line in there somewhere that said something like Beijing blames the Fed raising rates for international, financial whatever. But it's funny that people here a few years ago were blaming China for with COVID and all that for like international financial ruin or whatever.
Well, and China will straight up, manipulate their currency. We do it too. Every major industrialized nation does it. So if you actually get into forex trading, or you do some kind of study on how to trade forex, that's one of the primary concerns, is that these countries are going to get together and manipulate their currency. Even Switzerland has done it. They did it one time in the mid-90s. It was substantial because they, the Swiss franc maintains parity with the dollar, just like the euro does. There was a time a few months ago that a U.S. dollar was worth like $1.25 or $1.30 euros, and they were like, "This is a problem." And now it's channeling back in the same area. Now we're getting up into $1.35, $1.40 Canadian. We should be about $1.25. There's certain channels that these countries get together, and they like to operate to maintain stability, or at least the visage of stability.
So we need another country to ruin themselves financially to kind of balance things out,
Well, and there's some that are headed for some demographic cliffs. Certain European countries are upset about their influx of migrants, but their current working population is not enough to cover their pensioners retiring.
And then there's
that's kind of what we're headed for too. Is Gen Z is not really entering and producing in the workforce at the level to support the boomers at the rate they're retiring.
Right. That's what I was going to bring up, is like an age thing, like a generational.
Yeah.
You brought up demographics, like age is a big one.
Yeah. Well, and there's a demographic precipice that we're headed for. And I hate to say it, but it's kind of fortuitous COVID knocked some of these folks off. Because now we're kind of, reaching that level of parity again, where the workforce can support the retirees.
I'll bring up even just, the question again of like coincidence. You know what I mean? Like in general, you have a disease that targets just basically that demographic or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
We don't even need an answer.
And then if you believe the official death toll numbers, the boomers just had a Vietnam level extinction event in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Before that, it was handguns,
Yeah. So it's just stuff to look at. And I'm not going to be, so doom and gloom that, we're going to be, all orphans just hanging out in the cold, waiting for our next bowl of soup. But, the next step is, going out for sushi is going to suck just as bad as going out for chicken wings does now.
Yeah.
There's going to be this. It's a little bit of a pinch. There's just, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. And we're a frog in boiling water. Now if we continue to produce and kick ass like we always do, we'll fend our way through this. But, there's certain things, grains and rice and stuff like that. The price is about to go up. And, we could very well, and this is not financial advice, but, we could very well see $3,000 an ounce gold in the next year and a half.
I thought you were going to say $3,000 rice. $3,000 an ounce rice.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, at Salt Bay's restaurant. He'll slather it in butter and sprinkle salt on it.
Oh, we switched.
Yeah. But let's see. That's all I got. I was supposed to get some funny videos. Zach, can you bring up the riverboat reenactment?
Oh, I saw that,
Yep.
and I didn't watch that yet because I saved my genuine reaction for this. But
Yeah. I mean, unless you guys got anything else serious to talk about.
I've got 5% battery life left on my stupid pad, and I haven't run my power cable yet. I'm still like establishing my office here, so I have probably 5 minutes. Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is gonna be a good one to end with. This is a reenactment of the Montgomery riverboat.
Oh, right.
These guys did a good job.
Wait, I'm not sure I've seen the original clip.
Oh yeah. Okay. So now you got to go look that one up, Zane.
We watched it in the wrong order. But this looks like WWE. Like.
Oh yeah. So there was a riverboat in Montgomery, Alabama that was about to shove off, and one of the security guards told the guy, he couldn't get on, and then he and his drunk buddy started swinging, and then instantly, people from the riverboat are filming this fight scene. Oh, here we go. Here's the real thing.
So this is okay. Yeah.
And these are so this point of view is people on the boat right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's telling the guy, boat's about to shove off, get out of here, and they're not having it.
What do you just throw his hat for?
Right. Yeah, he's doing some showboating.
I mean, like, you drop it on the ground is one thing, but he like frisbeed it.
Yeah. Now he's getting ganged up on.
Who's throwing something in the water?
Yeah, he's got folks coming to help him out. And meanwhile, homeboy jumped in the water. He's swimming over there.
Oh,
No,
that's what someone.
You're not taking my guy like that.
Okay. I love that someone got the guy swimming in the pool. What are we doing?
I mean, this has been all over the national news this week, other than Hawaii
Really?
being on fire. Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for the guy that jumped in the water. By the time he was able to swim,
It was over.
It was
Yeah.
already over.
Oh, yeah, he's totally out of breath too. He's trying to puff up and defend the guy. But
He missed it. He missed all the action.
yeah. And then eventually some guy comes up with a chair.
Oh, that's why he throws his hat. He launches his hat.
Yeah. And does some kind of Popeye dance,
Yeah. And then someone swims. All right, makes more sense in this order now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, this is very well choreographed.
I think Zane and I both don't watch national news, so I didn't see this.
I get all my news from podcasts, so
Yeah. I get a lot of mine
not very
from
good
memes
for
and stuff.
watching
And
videos.
yeah, this has been all over memes on Skynet. So that's how I got my news on that.
I get my news from you guys every Thursday, so.
Yeah, there we go. See, and Elizabeth's got a point. Wings used to be poor people food. Now,
Lobster used to be poor people food.
Exactly. Cockroach of the sea.
Yeah.
But now it's, upper middle class are the only people that can really handle it.
Yeah.
So,
There's a long tradition of people turning the scraps into something edible and then turning it into something delicious. And then the rich people that gave them the scraps now want that thing. And then it becomes too expensive, and we got to start the cycle all over again with a new thing that nobody wants. A new cut of meat or a new whatever.
right. I remember the porterhouse steak, which was like a sirloin with a ribeye still attached to it.
It's the it's porterhouse is if it's no yeah T-bone is the New York and the filet mignon.
Yeah.
Porterhouse. I'm not even sure what cut the porterhouse is now.
That porterhouse was 2 cuts, and you don't see anybody anymore serving porterhouse.
I love porterhouse. No one serves porterhouse?
No.
Porterhouse is great.
I had a porterhouse at Outback State. No, Texas Roadhouse. I was at
Roadhouse
Texas
has porterhouse, yeah.
several months ago because a friend of mine was working there, and I was going to get the 40% friends and family discount. So I immediately ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, which was the 23-ounce porterhouse.
Yeah.
$60 steak, isn't it?
No. At Texas Roadhouse, it was only $27.
A porterhouse is a strip and a tenderloin or a fillet together, and it's like the same thing as T-bone. You just get more fillet.
I think it's T-bone just further down on the loin or something at a different either fore or aft or whatever of the steer, but a similar stretch of the muscle.
In the wake of the Obama inflation, I don't see the porterhouse anymore. I don't see it at my grocery store anyway. I used to be able to go to
I can't afford steak at the grocery store, so I don't even fucking look anymore.
All right.
God, I'm working with ground beef now at this point, man. Ground chuck is what I can afford.
Right.
I can do good things with ground chuck, but it's still just ground chuck,
Yeah, well, or it's what, red beans and rice?
Yeah.
Well, the price of rice is going up, so
a lot of kielbasa, yeah. Yeah, this is why I'm not as familiar with where the cuts are on the steer anymore, because I can't eat the damn cuts anymore, so it doesn't matter. All I get is chuck, so it doesn't matter. God, I get chuck and I tripe, is what I can afford.
Hey, tripe tacos are not to be messed with.
No, dude, I'll eat tripe. I'll tear up
if they're done right. Yeah. Or lingua. If you had some lingua tacos.
Oh, that's my favorite, dude. Lingua is the bomb, dude. Absolutely. Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Give me the pork cuts that no one wants and turn them, cook them for 12 hours and I'll eat that,
Yeah. Put some fancy gravy on it. I'm all over it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And cabeza, basically head tacos, man. It's good.
I haven't had those.
Cabeza's good, man.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll eat anything, man. I mean, not cockroach milk or whatever, but if it comes from an animal,
right.
I'll eat
I'll
anything.
say I'm gonna hit you with a double scoop Into milk sundae one day.
No, I'm not into that. No, just tell me there's pistachio in there, and then maybe you trick me into eating cricket ice cream or whatever.
It's really ground up grasshoppers.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have for tonight, Phyllis. I mean, we're at about 2.5 hours, so
that's a good run.
Yeah, I think we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, happy birthday.
So we'll just say, lpgeorgia.com. Follow them. They make this whole thing possible. And shout out to Jake. Thank you for letting us take the reins tonight. There we go. Zach's throwing that link up there. lpgeorgia.com/join. For the price of 1 month of Netflix, you can be an LP member and fund endeavors like this and many others.
For less than the price of one porterhouse per year, you can get a membership.
There you go. Yeah. One porterhouse per year. I'll give you a shout out every week if you want to throw it my way. So well, that's all I have. Thank you, folks. Tune in next week.
Yeah, that's fun.